American comic, I'm lost, I'm surrounded by superheroes with father issues. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 526, A New Batman Who Kills? Isn't Captain Cold a member of the Rogue Gang? Barry asked in surprise. I haven't heard of this name. Singer was about to say something when his men said to him, Citizen Cold fought with the gangsters outside the museum. If I guessed correctly, he has already got the information of the witnesses of this murder. Damn it, Singer hammered the table. Citizen Cold has a lot of public support now. The higher-ups won't let us follow him, Alan, he shouted at Barry, but found that Barry was gone. At this time, Barry had left the office and ran outside quickly. How could Captain Cold, a rogue bastard, become a superhero? Something must have gone wrong in this world. Panicked, he wanted to activate the Speed Force and go outside to see what happened. Unexpectedly, not only did he not activate the Speed Force, but when he ran to the steps outside the police station, his body stumbled and fell directly to the ground. With a bang, he fell to the ground on his back. Covering the back of his neck, Barry groaned. Are you okay? A pair of hands reached out to him. Looking at the hands that seemed familiar, Barry raised his head and looked at the owner of the hands. Seeing this figure that had appeared in his dreams countless times, Barry was stunned. Mom, a woman in a light blue dress, blonde hair and a warm smile reached out to him. This was his mother, who had appeared in his memory countless times and was the figure he thought about day and night. You don't look very well, Barry. Did you encounter any troubles at work? The mother asked her with a smile. Mom, is it really you? Of course. Do you have a second mother? Don't forget, you promised to take me to dinner on my birthday. The mother squatted down and held Barry's hand. Today is my birthday, did you forget? Barry stood up with a little unreality. He looked down at his hands. Is this real? Everything was unreal, like a dream. Because this kind of happiness came too suddenly, it made him doubt whether all this was a dream. Mom, are you really here? Of course. His mother held his hands, right in front of you, just like always. Bang! The next second, Barry hugged his mother tightly, tears instantly bursting out of his eyes. It's so good to see you, Mom. His mother was hugged and was stunned at first. After feeling Barry's slightly trembling body, she smiled and closed her eyes. Me too. It's so good to see you, Barry. The mother and son walked on the street, surrounded by bustling shops. As Christmas approached, the street was filled with a warm and joyful atmosphere. Mom, where's Dad? Barry put his hands in his pockets and walked slowly on the street, asking his mother. He enjoyed walking with his mother like this, and if possible, he hoped to continue walking on this road. Are you sure you didn't hit your head? Barry's mother stopped. Barry, your father died of a heart attack 3 years ago? Dead. Barry stopped, his face full of shock. Wasn't Dad alive and well? How could he die of a heart attack? At this moment, a police car whizzed past them. Barry subconsciously wanted to transform into the Flash to catch the criminals. Now it's the Flash's turn. The Flash. Hearing her son's words, his mother looked at him in surprise. What are you talking about? Barry explained to his mother. The Flash. Don't you know about it, Mom? That guy runs very fast, like lightning. His mother shook her head blankly. I haven't heard of it. Barry frowned. What about Superman? Have you heard of him, Mom? And Homelander? I haven't heard of them either. His mother put her hand on Barry's forehead and asked worriedly, Didn't you hit your head just now, Barry? What about Batman? Barry felt that his head must be in a state of confusion now. Is this world still his own world? Batman. Barry's mother nodded. Of course, I know Batman. Who hasn't heard of this world? Gotham. On the busy streets, people were busy with traffic. Feeling the approach of the festival, people on the street looked up at the sky when they heard the sound of fireworks. Boom! A bunch of gorgeous fireworks exploded in the air. Behind the fireworks, on the upper floors of an office building, with a whoosh, the rope shot from the bat hook gun swung in the air. Then a bat figure passed through the air. I see you. Batman made a low and hoarse voice and jumped to the rooftop of a building. Bang! Batman, who landed on the rooftop, squinted his eyes and looked at the members of the Joker gang who were running away in the distance. The Batman who was chasing the criminals at this time was obviously different from Bruce's Batman. Compared with Bruce, the other party's figure was thinner, with a beard visible on his chin and a dark red belt hanging around his waist. After landing on the ground, He shot a hook gun at the Joker gang member. The rope of the hook gun suddenly entangled the other party's ankle. The woman dressed as Harley Quinn fell heavily to the ground. She wanted to stand up, but was knocked down by Batman, who rushed over the next second. "Tell me, Yo-Yo." Batman called her Yo-Yo because she used a yo-yo. "Where's the Joker?" Batman asked her angrily. "Tell me, where's she?" Harley Quinn was controlled, but she was not afraid at all. "Where's the Joker?" "The Joker is in the heart of each of us, Batman. In your heart, in my heart, and in the heart of everyone in Gotham. We all have a little bit of madness." Bang! Batman threw a punch and hit Harley Quinn's face hard, causing her mouth to bleed. "I'm not crazy," Harley Quinn laughed. "No one with a normal mind would stay in Gotham, right?" Batman ignored her words, grabbed her collar, and asked angrily, "While you can still speak, tell me, where's the Joker's carnival house?" "It's on my tongue." Harley Quinn laughed and pointed to her tongue. Batman stretched out his claws and stretched them towards the other's mouth. "Very good, then let me take it out." Seeing Batman's claws flashing with cold light really reaching out to her, she was frightened and closed her eyes. "Okay, I surrender." "Very good. Judge Dent's twin children were kidnapped last night. I know they are in the hands of the Joker. Tell me, where are they?" Harley Quinn closed her eyes and replied to him, "Even if I really know, it's useless. It's too late. They are probably dead." "Really?" Batman's eyes flashed with a cold light. "Then you too." He pulled Harley Quinn to the edge of the roof. "Wait." Harley Quinn realized what Batman was going to do and begged for mercy in horror. As a result, she was thrown out before she finished speaking. Harley Quinn screamed and fell directly from the roof of the high-rise building. At the thrilling moment when she was about to fall to the ground, a silver figure suddenly flew into the air and hugged the falling Harley Quinn. Cyborg arrived in time and saved Harley Quinn. The surviving Harley Quinn heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Cyborg. "I choose to surrender." Cyborg, smart. Cyborg landed on the ground, restrained Harley Quinn, and looked at Batman, who was walking towards him in the dark shadows. "You should have let her fall to the bottom," Batman said to Cyborg with a sullen face. "Don't you want to ask me how I found you?" Cyborg asked Batman. Batman shook his head. No need. Thermal vision, electronic hearing, connect to one of your satellites and you can get a map of the entire Gotham City." Seeing Batman about to leave, Cyborg followed him. "Actually, it's simpler than that. It's night in Gotham City now. You're hunting, and you always drive them to the corner of this particular path, and then let them fall, a long fall." Batman glanced at the police car that was rushing over, and said in a hoarse voice, "She slipped, not me." "Really? Did every one of them slip here?" Cyborg naturally didn't believe Batman's words. He said to him seriously, "But I'm not here to judge you, Batman. We need your help. Yes, we need your help." As Cyborg spoke, countless superheroes walked towards him. At the same time, Barry stood in front of the cafe. Barry, who always felt that something was wrong with the world he was in, hesitated and said to his mother, "Mom, I need to contact Alice." Alice is Barry's girlfriend, a photo editor in Central City, and the two have just confirmed their boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. "Who is Alice?" "Your new friend? Are you dating?" His mother was immediately attracted by Barry's words. "It will only take a minute, Mom." Barry smiled apologetically at his mother, then called his girlfriend. After failing to get through, he called the other party's newspaper. "Excuse me, I want to talk to Alice West. Is she there?" "Okay, you don't need to call her. I just want to confirm if she is there." Looking at the newspaper next to the cafe, Barry decided to go in and talk to her in person. This newspaper is where Alice works. After entering the newspaper, Barry soon found his girlfriend. Alice was holding a cup of coffee and walking towards an office. "Hey, Alice, sweetheart, are you okay?" Barry, who was following behind, wanted to go up and say hello to his girlfriend. Unexpectedly, the other party walked straight towards a man, and then the two hugged each other and kissed each other on the cheek. Barry was struck by lightning when he saw this scene. He wanted to go forward and ask, but finally stepped back and stood in the distance, watching the two with mixed feelings. Chapter 527 What if Bruce Wayne's father became Batman? Buzz, Barry was driving the car on the dark road. Rain began to fall from the gloomy sky, and the raindrops fell on the windshield. Barry, who felt green on his head, turned on the wipers and looked at the road ahead blankly. His mother was resurrected, his father died of a heart attack, and his girlfriend followed someone else. What happened in this world? He murmured in a low voice. His heart was in a mess. My mother said that Batman still exists. Maybe I can find him to see what happened." He cast his eyes on the sign on the side of the road, and the words on it caught his eyes 13 kilometers away from Gotham. Exhaling, Barry stepped on the accelerator and accelerated towards Gotham. Half an hour later, Barry came to Wayne Manor, where he had just been. Looking at the dilapidated and desolate manor in a heavy rain, which seemed to have been uninhabited for many days, he fell into a mess. "This is Wayne Manor. What happened?" Swallowing his saliva, Barry got out of the car and walked into the manor with an umbrella. Walking to the rusty door, he pushed it open and entered. "Hello? Is anyone here?" Barry shouted to the surroundings in the empty and desolate hall. The hall exuded a musty smell, window glass fragments were scattered on the ground, and broken furniture was randomly placed in the corners, covered with dust or covered with white cloth. "Batman? Alfred? Are you there?" he shouted a few times, but there was no movement, only Barry's own voice echoed in the dark hall. Frowning, he took out a flashlight and checked the hall. He remembered that Clark had told him in an email that Wayne Manor had a Batcave as a secret base. The Batcave base was usually only accessible to Bruce and Peter. Although he didn't know where the entrance to the base was, Barry found relevant clues after searching the living room. The wall clock in the study showed signs of being moved. Barry, who guessed that the entrance to the Batcave might be here, put down the flashlight and pushed the wall clock open. Sure enough, he found a dark passage leading to the underground space behind it. Barry calmed himself down, used a flashlight to shine on the stairs, and entered the underground Batcave. Entering the inside of the Batcave, the dim light illuminated the dark underground cave. There was no dazzling light that illuminated the entire Batcave as imagined, nor were there various sophisticated equipment. There were only a few simple wooden tables placed in the middle. Walking to the wooden table, Barry looked at the crossbow placed on it, the bat darts that were polished to shine, and the scattered belt-high explosives. On the safe next to it, there was a pistol and a photo. The photo was a photo of the Wayne couple and Bruce as a child. Reaching out, Barry wanted to take the photo and take a look. The moment his hand touched the photo, a shadow suddenly attacked from behind. A strong and powerful hand locked his arm, and then threw the unprepared Barry heavily to the ground. Bang! The powerful arm threw Barry to the ground in an instant. The ground was shaken slightly, and Barry groaned in pain. "Who are you, Batman?" who launched a sudden attack from the dark, gritted his teeth and grabbed Barry, who was groaning on the ground, and slammed him against the wall. "Who the hell are you? Tell me." Barry, who felt a sharp pain in his back, saw Batman's fist coming towards his face, and immediately shouted, "Bruce, wait, Bruce." Batman was stunned when he heard this name. Barry swallowed his saliva and said to the other party, "Calm down, you must remember, it's me, Barry Allen. Bruce, I know what happened. I know your real name." Batman, who had one hand against Barry's body, let him go and let him slide down the wall. "Bruce is dead," Batman said to him in a deep voice. "I saw him die in front of me with my own eyes." "What?" Hearing Batman say that Bruce was dead, Barry was stunned. "My God." He looked at Batman in disbelief, and then looked at the photo frame placed on the table. An impossible but logical idea emerged in his mind. That day in Crime Alley, was it Bruce who was killed? "He replaced you." Barry's eyes were full of disbelief. "You are Thomas Wayne." Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father. Barry had just finished speaking when Thomas bent down and grabbed him, slamming him against the wall again. "Ow!" Barry groaned in pain, enduring the pain and trying to explain to him, but Thomas grabbed his hand and twisted his 5 fingers. "What do you want to do?" Barry asked in horror. "Ah!" The next second, Barry screamed in pain. Snapping Barry's fingers, Thomas asked him harshly, "I will break every bone in your body until you tell me who the hell you are and why you are here. Did the Joker send you?" Hearing Thomas' words, Barry immediately denied. "No, it's not him." Barry, whose forehead was sweating from the pain, explained with difficulty, "My name is Barry Allen, but like you, I have another identity. I am the Flash. After I was struck by lightning, I became the fastest man in the world." Bang! Before Barry could finish, Thomas punched him in the face again. "You son of a bitch, you can't even avoid my punch, and you still say you are the fastest man." Covering his bleeding mouth, Barry explained to the other party aggrievedly, "That's because I lost my superpowers, and no one in this world remembers that the Flash existed. Do you think I'm delusional and will believe you?" Thomas punched him, and Barry had to dodge. Barry, who was in a state of panic, dodged backwards and said to the other party, "I didn't lie, that really happened." I must be in a parallel world, or I entered a mirror world of the Mirror Master. I need your help. Thomas knocked Barry down with a punch, and then lifted him up with one hand. You son of a bitch, you are good at making up stories. Barry, who was held by Thomas, struggled, and suddenly a lot of information appeared in his mind. Reading the information instilled into his mind, Barry quickly understood what happened. Aquaman and the Atlanteans flooded Europe, and before that, Wonder Woman led the Amazons to blitz Britain and occupied the British Isles, and the whole of Europe fell into turmoil. Covering his head, Barry groaned in pain. I understand, this is not a parallel world, nor is it the world of the Mirror Master. This is what really happened in this world, and my past memories are disappearing. Hearing Barry's words, Thomas stopped. He put Barry down. Your words don't sound fake. The moment Thomas put Barry down, the ring in Barry's pocket fell off. My ring. Barry, who was covering his head, saw his ring and didn't bother to think about why the world had become like this. He quickly picked up the ring. I'll show you that everything I said is true. I'll prove it. Barry showed the ring to Thomas. I hid my uniform in the compartment of this ring. This uniform is made of a wear-resistant material. It will unfold immediately when it encounters air. He opened the ring. There was a bang in the ring, and a yellow uniform popped out. Barry, what's wrong? Seeing that Barry didn't speak, Thomas asked him, aren't you going to prove it to me? Well, there was an accident. This is not my uniform, it's Reverse Flash's. Reverse Flash, Barry replied guiltily. Yes, Albert Swan. He was originally a scientist from the 25th century. After becoming fascinated by my abilities, he recreated the accident that turned me into the Flash and turned himself into the fastest man in the world. Thomas frowned at him. Why is his uniform in your ring? It's in there. Reverse Flash must have put it in himself. Maybe he's the mastermind behind it, just to laugh at me. Thomas' patience was exhausted. He grabbed Barry's clothes. You are more suitable to stay in Arkham than the Joker, Barry hurriedly explained. I'm not mentally ill, Dr. Wayne. It must be Reverse Flash who changed history. Everything is weird. No one here has even heard of Superman and Homelander. Aquaman is actually fighting Wonder Woman. Things shouldn't be like this. You said Reverse Flash changed history. Thomas' eyes flashed coldly. What about Bruce? When you came in just now, you called me Bruce. Why? Barry took a deep breath and said to the other party, in the world I know, you were shot in his place, and Bruce became Batman and fought against the evil forces in Gotham. Hearing what the other party said, Thomas was stunned. Bruce survived? Yes, he is my friend. Thomas slowly let go of Barry's hand, with an expression of disbelief on his face. I died, and Bruce lived. He stretched out his hands and looked at his hands. He replaced me and became Batman. Yes, Dr. Wayne. Why did he become Batman? Why doesn't he live a good life? After a moment of silence, Thomas clenched his fists and asked Barry angrily. I don't know. That's why we need to restore the world. Barry quickly remembered a very important thing. Oh, Mr. Padraic, we can go and seek his help. Clark said that Padraic has the ability to cross dimensions and time. Maybe the timeline won't affect him. Thomas asked him puzzledly. Who is Padraic? Bruce's godfather. What? Chapter 528. Martha starts to act like a clown. What did you say? Bruce has a godfather, Thomas asked in confusion. Which godfather? Are you talking about Philip Wayne? Who is Philip Wayne? Barry was stunned and said that he had never heard of this name. Forget it. Why would the Padraic you mentioned become Bruce's godfather? Thomas frowned and asked, who is he? He felt a little unhappy. After he was gone, Bruce found another father? What qualifications does that guy have to be the godfather of his child? Mr. Padraic's origins are a bit complicated. You can go to Smallville with me to take a look? Barry asked the other party to go to Smallville with him. Padraic has 6 children. If they are all here, maybe they can help us correct the world line. Barry thought for a moment and said, no, as long as any 2 of them are here, we can catch the Reverse Flash and make everything go back to the way it was. After hearing what Barry said, Thomas asked him curiously, who are his children? The eldest son, Homelander, can fly like Superman and has a body of steel, with super speed and super strength. The second son is Star-Lord, who seems to have the power of a god. The third son is Loki, a wizard who is good at magic. Barry introduced several of Peter's sons and daughters to Thomas. This guy sounds like an alien? Thomas picked up the red belt on the table and walked outside. Let's go to Smallville. If you are not crazy and talking nonsense, then let your Peter Padraic prove it. Barry rubbed his wound and hurried to catch up with the other party. "Where is your bat plane?" Seeing Thomas taking him to an ordinary old private plane, Barry asked him in surprise, "Don't you have a cool bat plane?" "No, I'm not good at those cool high-tech things you mentioned." Shaking his head, Thomas under the bat mask whispered. He started the private plane, and the plane flew into the rain with a buzzing sound. Ugh! Barry, who was sitting in the co-pilot of the private small plane, covered his head in pain. "What's wrong?" Thomas frowned and asked him. "There's something wrong with my memory. It is constantly changing. Many memories of the previous world are beginning to disappear in my mind." Barry covered his head and said painfully. His original girlfriend was Alice, but the memory of this world is eroding him, making him gradually forget his girlfriend's name. "My past memories are merging with the memories of this world. If we don't solve this problem quickly," he said while enduring the pain, "I might forget the past, forget Bruce and Mr. Padrick, forget Alice. We must hurry up and catch the reverse flash and change everything." Seeing Barry's painful appearance, Thomas silently took out a bottle of potion from his belt and handed it to him. "This is some sedatives. Try to see if this can prevent your memory from being eroded." Barry took the potion, took a deep breath, and swallowed it in one breath. "How is it? Is it effective?" Closing his eyes, Barry covered his head with his hands. After a while, he slowly moved his hands away. "It seems to have some effect. I hope you are not talking nonsense." Thomas shook his head and looked at the sky surrounded by rain outside. The plane soon landed outside Padrick's farm. Barry got off the plane and looked at the farm with lights on. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Padrick's farm is still there, which means that Padrick's family should not have changed much. "Is this the Padrick home you mentioned?" Thomas asked Barry suspiciously. "It doesn't look like there's anything special about it. It seems to be just an ordinary farm." "Go in and take a look." Barry walked to the porch and rang the doorbell. Squeak! The door was opened. Bruce stood behind the door and saw Barry's figure. He was slightly stunned. "Barry, if you don't show up again, we may search for you all over the world." Bruce, who was wearing plain clothes, was talking to Barry. When he saw Thomas standing outside the door, his words stopped for a moment and he was stunned. Thomas' eyes also met Bruce's for a moment. The father and son were on the farm. After the shooting in the alley, they met each other's most regretful and guilty family in their lives. It was pouring rain outside, and the father and son looked at each other. Bruce stood in the light and Thomas stood in the dark. The figures of the two cast long shadows on the ground. "Dad," after a while, Bruce shouted in disbelief. Thomas smiled. Because he hadn't laughed for many years, he had long forgotten how to laugh, which made his laugh look a little weird. Taking off the bat mask, Thomas's fierce eyes softened in an instant. "Son, it's me." Thomas took a step forward and put his hand on Bruce's shoulder. "You've grown up a lot." Thomas put his hand on Bruce's shoulder, and his emotions were mixed. "You've aged a lot, Dad." Bruce's eyes were red, but he suppressed his tears and didn't let them flow out. "We will all be tired by time, Bruce." Thomas opened his mouth to say something, but found that he couldn't say anything now. He had thought back countless times to the alley that changed everything that night. Thinking about what his son would become if he grew up. He imagined countless times, imagining that the family had an ordinary family dinner together, and exchanged the joys and troubles of the day at the table. He could never have imagined that father and son would meet in such a scene. "Your son, you must have had a hard time these years." Thomas looked at Bruce with vicissitudes and relief in his eyes. Bruce didn't say anything, just shook his head. In the living room, Peter, Tom, Louise, Lana and others saw Bruce recognize his father and remain silent. After the father and son reunited, Peter let Barry and Thomas in. Bruce quietly walked to the porch outside, wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes without telling anyone, and then came back as if nothing had happened. Peter, who saw Bruce's actions, didn't say anything. He turned his eyes to Thomas. Thomas shook hands with Peter after Barry introduced him. "Mr. Padrick, thank you for taking care of Bruce." "You're welcome. Bruce is a very good kid. When I met him, he was still a teenager," Peter replied to the other party with a calm expression. The other party's information flashed through his mind. Since Clark discovered that his parents didn't recognize him, Peter investigated the world and soon realized that the past timeline of his world might have been changed, resulting in the tampering of the current reality. For example, some villains became superheroes, Superman did not come to Earth, Barry's mother lived well, Bruce Wayne died in Crime Alley, The Atlanteans went to war with the Amazons, and Lois Lane went from a reporter to a member of the resistance. Everything in the world has changed beyond recognition, but only the traces of his family seem to have been erased. Without any trace of existence. Peter guessed that when the world line was changed, the shield created by the world tree blocked the changes made by the world line to the farm. Although his family and Lina and others in Patrick's farm are still in this world, they are independent of the world line and are not affected. And in this world, except for these few people, everyone else can't remember the past history. Many thoughts flashed through his mind, and Peter looked at Thomas Wayne, who shook hands with him. According to his previous understanding, in the rewritten world line, after losing Bruce, the richest man in Gotham became Batman to punish evil. This Bat Punisher uses bullets to enforce justice in Gotham City. His image is exactly the same as the Punisher. The only difference is that he is richer than the Punisher. This is the first time I have seen Batman holding two guns. Thomas didn't know what was going through Peter's mind. While shaking hands, he saw his watch on Peter's wrist, and his expression suddenly became unhappy. Isn't this the watch he has been wearing? Could it be that in the original world line, Bruce gave his watch to him after he died of a shooting? His son is really a big boy. Thomas didn't show his unhappiness, but said to Peter with a stern face, "No matter what, I have to thank you for taking care of Bruce." After Barry and Thomas came, everyone on the farm gathered in the living room for a meeting. "Dad, where's Mother?" Bruce asked Thomas in confusion. "Your mother has some mental problems," Thomas said vaguely. He didn't want Bruce to know about that heavy past. Bruce hesitated and asked, "What about Butler Alfred? He died in an accident." Looking at the rain outside in the dark night, Thomas thought of the night when it was also raining heavily. Not long after the tragedy in the alley, when Thomas just fell into darkness, a terrible disaster occurred in Wayne Manor. When Thomas Wayne returned home, it was too late. The old butler was dead. He could only desperately question the woman in front of him, Martha. Why, he didn't find my pearl necklace. It turned out that Martha had been asking the old butler for her pearl necklace, and then she lost her patience and vented her wrath on the poor old man. Alfred died in Martha's hands with regret. After the old butler died, Martha Wayne began to regard herself as a clown. Chapter 529, The Flash struck twice. We must find the Reverse Flash. I suspect that he changed a certain time node in the past, which caused such a change in our world, Barry said his guess. But now I have lost the Speed Force and cannot find this guy. As long as we find him, can everything be restored? Tom asked with a frown. Yes, the Speed Force can change the past. As long as we correct the wrong node, everything can be restored to normal. Bruce interrupted him. If the time node is corrected, everyone in this world will disappear, right? He looked at his father. Everything will return to the starting point. Barry did not speak. He lowered his head and acquiesced to this. This means that this is not a dream, Star-Lord said thoughtfully. Everyone will be erased. Thomas, who was stared at by Bruce, nodded and said, "Yes, everything will be erased." Listening to his father calmly talking about being erased, Bruce looked at him in astonishment. If that's the case, it means his father will die. This is the world we can't get rid of. Either we change this world or we let it burn in hell. Thomas' eyes flashed with determination. This world no longer has any reason to exist, Dad. Bruce's heart seemed to be caught by something, and a pain and powerlessness came. I need to restore my own Speed Force before I can catch the Reverse Flash. Barry broke the silence and said to everyone, "The experiment that made me become the Flash, we can reproduce it here." He looked at the heavy rain outside. Boom, a flash of lightning exploded in the air, illuminating his face. "Aren't you afraid that the experiment will fail and you will be electrocuted into charcoal?" Peter frowned and asked him. Barry shrugged and said, "Everything has to take some risks, right?" Seeing that the other party insisted, Peter no longer objected. He asked Azu and others to help him prepare the materials. Everyone took action, and when Peter was about to go upstairs, he was suddenly stopped by Thomas. "Mr. Patrick, can we talk?" Looking at the Punisher Batman, Peter nodded. Of course. In the study, Peter poured a cup of coffee for him. Taking the coffee, Thomas said with mixed feelings, "I can feel that Bruce really regards you as a father." "I have always regarded Bruce as my child," Peter sat down and said to him. After a long silence, Thomas looked at the rain outside the window. "In fact, after Bruce passed away, I also had children. That was one of the few times in my life that was not covered by gray." Thomas' eyes flashed with a trace of nostalgia. Martha became the Joker and she vented her anger on Alfred, an innocent old man. I became Batman, just to get revenge on this dark city, without any mercy, without a trace of compassion. The Penguin became the first sacrifice, and then I frantically hunted down those criminals in Gotham City. Bane, Kite Man, Mr. Freeze, and Riddler were all killed by me. He paused, until I caught Catwoman, and when I was about to end her, I found that this girl had no fear. The world was full of darkness for her, and death might be the best relief. Thomas' hoarse voice told the story that had happened, and Peter listened quietly. My name is Selina, I don't have any family, they're all dead, no one will care. Shoot, that's what she said to me at the time. I put down the gun and began to introduce myself simply, because the girl in front of me reminded me of my son. I said, my name is Thomas Wayne, and I have a son named Bruce Wayne. Who is about your age? Thomas' eyes flashed with tenderness. When two lonely people came together, I decided to put my thoughts about Bruce on Selina, so I adopted Selina as my daughter, but I forgot that there is also a crazy mother. Her thoughts for her son will never stop. The Joker brought madness, darkness and death. She shot Selina, and I lost my child again. Peter's mood became heavy when he heard this. He could empathize with Thomas's emotions. If he lost any son or daughter, his anger and rage would not be less than his. Thomas looked at Peter. This dark world has lost all hope. For Bruce, Selina, everyone, Martha and myself, I hope you and Bruce will not hesitate to restart this world. Peter looked at the other's determined eyes and was slightly stunned. Then he nodded. I will. Peter could see that Thomas was determined to die. Perhaps after enduring so much darkness, he no longer thought he was qualified to live. I have endured too much darkness, so I don't want Bruce to repeat the same mistakes. I don't want him to become Batman, but I know I can't convince him. Thomas stood up and said to Peter, you are Bruce's godfather. I hope you can give him some warmth in the darkness, in the few remaining lights in his life. In the name of a father, Peter nodded with mixed feelings and promised him, I have always regarded Bruce as my son, and I will always accompany him on his life path. Thank you, Patrick. If possible, I really want to have a drink with you, but time does not allow it. As soon as Thomas finished speaking, Mark knocked on the door. Dad, Barry is ready. On the roof of the barn, Peter looked at Barry, who had made experimental materials and instruments, and asked him in surprise, pouring chemicals on you and then connecting a lightning rod can make you the Flash again? This is how I became the Flash the first time, Barry said confidently. Then he sat on a chair, put the metal cap on his head, and tied the wires. The people under the barn looked at Barry and mourned for him silently. It is unlikely that he will become the Flash. He will probably become a roast duck. Thomas stood behind the barn, looking at Barry, who was ready. Come on, I'm here. Barry, who was ready to die, hadn't finished speaking when a lightning bolt struck along the lightning metal with a crack. The lightning directly destroyed the chemicals and splashed on him. Barry, who was struck by lightning, twitched desperately. The flames burned on his body in an instant. Seeing that the situation was not good, Peter immediately released a rune and extinguished the flames in an instant. Thomas and Bruce immediately went forward to check on Barry's condition. Barry, who was burned beyond recognition, was dying at this time. Peter and Azu quickly carried him to the room. Thomas, who used to be a doctor, immediately used bandages and medicine to treat Barry. Peter used the rune to relieve his pain and heal his wounds. You must be crazy. After simply bandaging Barry, Thomas couldn't help but say to him, no, I must. Barry, who was wrapped up like a dumpling, wanted to get up from the bed, but Peter held him down. What are you going to do? Just try again. I need a bigger lightning. Thomas couldn't help but scold him. Do you want to die so much? Lie down. 75% of your body has been burned to the 3rd degree. You are lucky to be alive now. No, it doesn't matter. I must try again. Barry panted and said, I can't forget. Forget what? Forget the happiness my mother once brought me. Forget the murderer who once murdered my mother. Forget Alice. Forget all the people who have appeared in my memory. Please, Dr. Wayne, Mr. Patrick, help me. Get back to the roof. Listening to Barry's words, Thomas was slightly stunned. Peter put down the hand that was holding Barry's body. Tom on the other side felt that his heart was touched by the other party. He didn't expect that there were such people in the world. Even death can't stop his determination. He suddenly understood what Peter said before. Peter once said to himself that the Flash is the conscience of the Justice League. Although he didn't quite understand what the Justice League was, he now understood what his father meant. Tom, Come here and help hold Barry up, Peter's voice came, asking Tom to help hold Barry up to the roof. A few minutes later, Barry, with a bandage, sat back on the roof seat. Peter looked at Barry, who was gasping for breath, and shook his head. Do you really want to try again? You have to understand, Barry, if you don't succeed this time, you will be completely dead. I'm sure, sir, Barry said firmly. Okay, intending to give him a bigger one, Peter took out a meow hammer, and then summoned a thunderbolt in Thomas's shocked eyes. Boom! The thunderbolt released by Peter this time was thicker than the previous one. The silver snake-like lightning struck towards the chair where Barry was in the shocked eyes of Lana, Louise and others. The lightning splashed a chemical on Barry and hit him hard. Barry screamed in pain and was immediately surrounded by silver lightning. With a loud bang, the roof of the barn collapsed directly after being struck by lightning. The deafening sound resounded throughout the farm. Thomas was on the roof, and fell down a little unsteadily. Azu, who was far away, was completely numb when he saw the collapsed barn. How many times has his farm collapsed? Azu, who had already regarded the farm as his own, was immediately distressed when he saw the barn collapse. Chapter 530 Diana cuts off the head of the sea. At the critical moment, Barry, who was struck by lightning, turned into a flash of lightning and flew towards the falling Thomas. With a bang, Barry caught the falling Thomas. Azu and others looked at Barry, who was just dying, and turned into a flash of lightning, and opened their mouths in astonishment. He really succeeded. Thomas looked up at Barry who was holding him, his face full of shock. It seems that I am lucky enough this time and I didn't get burned to death, Barry panted and said to Thomas with his head down. Farm, living room. Peter used his hands to open Barry's eyes, observed his eyeballs, and then said, although it's slow, your burns are slowly healing. Thomas frowned and asked Barry, did you really succeed in the experiment and become the Flash? Barry nodded and explained, it probably succeeded. My speed has accelerated everything, including my healing function, but it will take some time to switch to high gear. This is crazy, Chloe next to him said, being hit by the flashpoint, plus a little chemical substance really became the Flash, she said to Lana in frustration. What's even crazier is that after the world line was changed, I was actually dead. After Chloe knew that the world line had been changed, she immediately went to check herself after the world line changed. As a result, she tragically found that she had died in a car accident. Lana was embarrassed to hear what Chloe said. After the world line changed, she is now married to Whitney. Wasn't Whitney the guy who bullied Clark before and was often beaten by Azu? She didn't expect that she would marry him. Neither Peter nor Clark. Such a terrible world, let's end it quickly. When Lana thought about living her life with Whitney, she felt that such a life was full of despair. She looked at Thomas with some sympathy. She now completely understood why he was full of despair about this dark world. On the other side, after being struck by lightning, Barry regained his ability, and the burns on the surface of his body were slowly healing. Taking out the yellow Reverse Flash uniform from the ring, Barry thought about it. Maybe I can disassemble it, disintegrate the fibers, and change this uniform to my color. He raised his head and asked Peter, Sir, is there any paint here? I need to change it to my uniform. Peter nodded, here are some. Great. After knowing where the paint was, Barry immediately turned into a flash of lightning and rushed out. A moment later, he reappeared in the living room and changed into a red uniform. But if you look closely, you can still see the traces of paint on the uniform. Now let's get to work. Barry patted his chest and said with full energy, without any trace of the embarrassment when he was struck by lightning just now. Tom, who was standing next to Barry, asked, if Reverse Flash has the same powers as you, how does he ensure that he can change history while you can't? Barry folded his arms across his chest and said, it's very simple science. For every positive charge, there is a corresponding negative charge. To put it in a not-so-simple scientific explanation, Reverse Flash is driven by the negative speed force, which is generated by the speed force energy that I generate. The negative speed force gives him multiple abilities that I don't have. He can control his own age, disintegrate things by touch, and he can change the past, which will give him permanent energy. Tom frowned and continued, but you can travel through time, why can't you change time? Barry shrugged and replied, generally speaking, yes, if my energy is fully charged to the maximum, but like I said, I need some time to reach my maximum speed. Trying to change anything in the past is like trying to swim up a waterfall. The current time is hostile to it. That's how it should be. Tom listened to Barry's words and nodded, His eyes cast toward the smaller raindrops outside. He remembered that when he was communicating with Tom Riddle in the diary, he heard him say that there was something called a time converter in the magic world. This is a magical tool carefully developed by the Ministry of Magic, which can make wizards go back to a certain period of time in the past. The device consists of a small hourglass and some complex magical mechanical parts. When the hourglass is rotated, time will flow backwards. However, Tom Riddle said that the use of the time converter is strictly restricted and regulated, because changing time at will may bring serious consequences, so the device is usually used for academic research and emergency rescue, and ordinary wizards cannot easily obtain this tool. He has been planning to get this prop and try to go back to a specific time point in the past to change something. For example, change the time when he arrives at the farm before Azu, so that he can become the eldest son of the farm. In this way, he can take the initiative in this family. As for Azu, who is now the eldest son, but has become like this, Tom has always looked down on him. In his opinion, Azu is arrogant and conceited, and even if he has powerful power, he cannot use it. It is better for him to be the eldest son of his father. Now after hearing what Barry said, he realized that changing the world at will would indeed cause some irreparable disasters. Just like Reverse Flash changed the world line, causing the world to become like this now. Peter had been listening quietly. After a while, he said to Barry, "Indeed, things that seem meaningless will push down a large number of dominoes, just like throwing a stone at a windshield, it can leave a mark that can run through history." Mark added from the side, "I know, this is called the butterfly effect." Peter walked over and touched Mark's head. "Yes, the butterfly effect." He cast his eyes on Thomas. Dr. Wayne, can you tell us why Diana and Aquaman went to war? And why did the two of them turn Europe into ruins? That's a long story. Thomas organized his words. The story begins when Wonder Woman's mother, Queen Hippolyta of Paradise Island, leads the Amazons to visit Atlantis. The Amazons and Atlanteans are very similar, both isolated from the world and very fond of fighting. The contemporary leaders of the two tribes hope to communicate with the outside world, so through this visit, they established diplomatic relations and agreed to marriage. The two people who are naturally married are Wonder Woman and Aquaman. Hearing that Wonder Woman is going to marry Aquaman, Loki looked at Peter with a strange look. "Why do I feel that my father is a little green?" After hearing what Thomas said, Raven frowned tightly. In the world of injustice, Diana and Superman are together, and now this woman is preparing to marry Aquaman. She doesn't look like a woman suitable for marriage. If your father wants to marry Diana, she will be the first to object. She cast her eyes on Kara, who was a spectator on the side. Kara is still suitable, at least more suitable than Diana and Queen Frigga. Thomas didn't know the different thoughts in everyone's mind. He continued, "However, there will always be some warmongers in the fighting nation, and some people have expressed strong opposition to this." On the day of Wonder Woman and Aquaman's wedding, dignitaries from all over the world were invited, and a live broadcast was conducted, but an accident happened during the ceremony. He paused and continued, "Aquaman's brother Garth assassinated Wonder Woman at the wedding. Queen Hippolyta blocked the assassination for Wonder Woman and died. Garth was killed by the angry Wonder Woman, so the marriage between the two tribes broke down. Later, we all know that Garth was a scapegoat and someone used him." Raven listened to Thomas's narration and felt a little difficult to understand and asked, "Don't they know that someone is interfering?" Aquaman noticed this. Thomas said to him, "Aquaman noticed that something was wrong, so he went to Paradise Island to try to repair his relationship with Wonder Woman, but the two hadn't talked for long before Paradise Island was attacked. Finally, Aquaman retreated, Paradise Island was destroyed, Wonder Woman led the Amazons to seize the British Isles and became the goddess of vengeance. The power and ambition displayed by the Amazons made people in Europe panic." Thomas said this, his eyes became complicated. After that, Aquaman planned to create a seismic pulse transmitter. This weapon can emit seismic pulse waves and let a continent fall into the seabed. Queen Mara thought that this behavior was too cruel, and the fight between the two races should not involve the human beings on Earth. In order to persuade Aquaman, she tried to assassinate Wonder Woman, but Mara failed to assassinate her. Wonder Woman threw Mara's head to Aquaman. What happened afterwards? I think I don't need to say it. Raven and others were stunned after listening to Thomas's story. How could Diana be so cruel after the world line changed that she actually cut off Mara's head? Mara and Diana both lived on the farm for a period of time. Fortunately, they were not allowed to be together. Otherwise, Raven seriously doubted that if these two women had a conflict because of their father, would Diana cut off Mara's head? Dad, if we go back to the original world, you have to be careful of Diana. I suspect she may have violent tendencies and mental problems. Peter, who was standing aside, was speechless when he saw Raven's sympathetic look at him. What kind of mess is this kid thinking? If Aquaman succeeds, the entire Earth will sink below the sea level, right? Peter coughed and asked Thomas. It should be like this. If we do nothing, the world will gradually go to destruction, Thomas said in a deep voice. Everyone listened to his words and fell into silence. Peter was about to say something when he heard footsteps outside. He raised his head and looked outside. Chapter 531. Mark seems to be a knight of the race. Knock. 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 There was a knock on the door, and everyone looked outside. Rhea, who was closest to the door, came up and opened the door, and Cyborg appeared outside. Hello. Cyborg forced a smile on his face and said to Rhea. It's you? Thomas didn't expect the other party to appear, and his brows furrowed. When he pushed Harley Quinn off the building before, Cyborg appeared, hoping that he would join the camp against Aquaman and Wonder Woman. After being rejected by him, he didn't expect this guy to chase her again. It seems that you don't welcome me, Batman, Cyborg said while looking at Peter next to him. You must be Mr. Peter Padrick, right? Cyborg stretched out his hand to Peter. He had used all means before, but couldn't find out Peter's information. This puzzled him. It was as if this farm appeared out of thin air. In view of this, he became quite curious about the identity of Peter's family. I have no intention of interfering in your affairs. Thomas knew Cyborg's intention. He walked up and said bluntly, I don't think you guys can accomplish anything either. Cyborg was rejected by him, and his tone became serious. More than 100 million people lost their lives when the Atlanteans sank Western Europe to the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Before that, more than 32 million people died when the Amazons declared Britain to be New Demsluca. New Demsluca, originally the country of the Amazon, a paradise that no one knows about. They all want to rule the world. We must defeat them before Aquaman and Wonder Woman destroy the rest of the Earth in their fight. Looking at the serious-faced Cyborg, Thomas shook his head. You are destined to fail, because the teammates around you are a group of gorillas. What you should care about most is whether they will fight among themselves. Without you, they might really be a mess, so we need you, Batman. Cyborg looked at Thomas and said to him, many people regard you as a leader. Thomas did not speak. He shook his head silently. Barry saw that the atmosphere was a bit heavy. He coughed and came up to Cyborg and said, can I say a few words? Of course. Cyborg looked at Barry. I think you forgot the most suitable person to resolve the dispute. Barry looked at Peter, who was silent beside him. I believe that as long as you convince Mr. Padrick, most of the problems can be solved. As long as he is willing to help, it will not be difficult to resolve Aquaman and Wonder Woman. Cyborg looked at Peter blankly after hearing this. Defeat the Atlanteans and Amazons. Can the other party do it? At the same time. London, New Demsluca. Standing in front of the ruins of the collapsed Big Ben, Steve Trevor, the first pilot in the original world line to enter Paradise Island and meet Diana, was standing in front of the ruins and looking at the city that had become a ruin. Holding the gun in his hand, he walked forward vigilantly. Taking out the communicator from his bag, he asked anxiously, damn it, where are you? I've already arrived at the meeting place. Why haven't I seen you yet? Trevor, a special agent of the US government, planned to come to meet with the informant, but he didn't expect to see the informant. Zizzy, there was a noise in the communicator, and then the signal was lost. Damn it, Trevor turned off the communicator heavily. Just after taking 2 steps, he heard hurried footsteps, and then saw a team of fully armed Amazons rushing towards him. Knowing that the other party was coming for him, and it was very likely that the information that he came to meet had been leaked, Trevor cursed inwardly and raised his pistol to shoot at the other party. The sound of ding ding dang dang rang out, and the fully armored Amazon woman raised her arm to block. The bullet hit the armor on her arm and bounced off, and the Amazon woman rushed towards him quickly with a shield. Shit, can anyone hear me? If you can, come and support me. Trevor ran backwards while firing his gun and calling for help on the communicator. But he had just taken 2 steps when a golden rope flew from the air and entangled his hands. The pistol in Trevor's hand was immediately thrown to the side uncontrollably. A voice came from behind him. Based on your accent, I can tell that you are American. Trevor, whose hands were entangled, looked back and saw the owner of the golden rope slowly walking towards him. The tall and explosive woman, the golden crown on her head almost covered half of her face, and the bracelet on her wrist shone brightly in the dark night. Swoosh, the golden rope went from Trevor's hand to his neck and controlled him. Trevor, whose neck was tied, made a painful sound. "You are American, but you have to tell me more than that." Wonder Woman, who did not know Trevor, pulled the lasso of truth fiercely, and Trevor was immediately pulled over by her uncontrollably. Grabbing the other's clothes, Wonder Woman asked him sternly, "Who are you, huh?" Trevor made a painful sound, but kept his mouth shut. The Amazons next to him looked at Trevor, a little surprised. There are mortals who can resist the lasso of truth. No one can resist the lasso of truth. Wonder Woman exerted a little force in her hands. "Tell me, who are you, and what are you doing in New Demslika?" Trevor, who felt a suffocating pain, was controlled by the lasso of truth and finally said to the other party, "My name is Colonel Steve Trevor, a member of the U.S. Special Operations Forces, and I am here to find Louise." "Who is Louise?" Wonder Woman frowned and continued to ask. "Her name is Lois Lane, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist known for her interviews with the world's greatest superheroes. In the past 8 months, she has gone deep into New Demslika, secretly collecting intelligence for Cyborg and you and the Amazons' actions. She knows every step you are going to take. In order to pass on your intelligence, she requested to send someone to contact her, so I volunteered to come." Trevor endured the pain and said, "She is the most beautiful woman I have ever seen." When Wonder Woman heard Trevor say Lois Lane's name, her brows furrowed even tighter. The subordinate came up and said to her, "Queen, our counterintelligence report is good. Cyborg is gathering superhumans to try to interfere with our battle with Aquaman." Wonder Woman nodded, took the lasso of truth off his head, and said to her subordinate, "Tell our insider that she has proved her worth to the Amazons, and she will be welcomed here, under the new order," she said coldly. "Also, find me Lois Lane." "Then how should we deal with him?" Looking down at Trevor, who was breathing heavily, Wonder Woman said lightly, "Just kill him." An hour later, Cyborg left the farm and returned to the headquarters in Detroit. Shortly after arriving, the projection of the President of the United States appeared in his base room. Mr. President, just give me a little time, and I can recruit real heroes. I now know a superhero who can change the situation. As long as we convince him." Cyborg was interrupted by the President before he finished speaking. "Victor, you tried your best to recruit a team of superheroes to stop the battle between Aquaman and Wonder Woman, but America lost one of its best soldiers today," the President's shadow said to him with a heavy expression. The signal on Colonel Steve Trevor's chest disappeared, and the rebels there never received Trevor's message. Someone intercepted him before the message was sent, which means that there is a traitor among the people you recruited. The President looked into Cyborg's eyes. "Anyway, I trust you. You are the only superhuman I trust, Victor. I appreciate your contribution to America, but America can't wait any longer. If I just sit here and wait for people like Batman to wake up, then the whole world will be hopeless, especially when someone inside is against you." The President showed him a regretful expression. "Sorry, Victor, you have been fired." Cyborg's expression was calm when he heard that he was fired. "If you count on the military, they can't do anything." He stood up and walked outside. Even if he was fired, he would not give up his fight. Patrick Manor. After a night of tossing and turning, it was already late at night. After Cyborg left, everyone returned to the room to rest. Mark, who was worried, followed Peter and called him. "Dad, can we talk?" Peter turned around when he heard the voice. Of course. After entering the room, Peter poured a glass of water for his son. "I guess you want to ask Dad why you rejected Cyborg, right?" Mark nodded. "Dad, I think Cyborg is a very upright person. Although it's the first time I met him, I can feel that he is different from other black people." "Peter, what do you mean by other black people?" He found that this naughty kid seemed to have the same concept as Azu, racial nights. "Hey Mark, if you say something is not true, don't say it in front of others next time." After warning the naughty kid, Peter said to him seriously, "I know Cyborg is upright, but the same may not be true for the group of mixed superheroes he leads." "You mean, Dad, you don't believe in the superheroes he has formed?" "Well, there are a lot of supervillains from the original world. Although they have become superheroes now, who knows whether they are really good people or bad guys in disguise, don't you think?" Peter rubbed Mark's hair and said. Chapter 532 Bruce, I am not a protagonist of the story. "Well, I understand, Dad, You will save them, right? Save those who are hurt, Mark asked his father expectantly and uneasily. After we modify the world line, they will all disappear. Do you think it is worth saving, Mark? Peter asked his son. Yes, even if the world is going to be destroyed in the next second, Dad. I also think that as long as they have survived in this world and fought against fate and did not give up, we should help them, Mark said firmly. Looking at the light in his son's eyes, Peter touched his hair. You are right, Mark, as long as you have fought against fate, even if you see hope 1 second before the world is destroyed, it is also a kind of beauty. Hearing Peter's words, Mark breathed a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that his father would not support him. Dad, do you think that sometimes changing the past will really make our future better? Mark hesitated, and finally said his doubts. Barry and Bruce both have their regrets. If the past is changed, will things develop into such a bad situation? Shouldn't we interfere with the past? Hearing Mark's question, Peter was stunned. Then he looked at the farm outside the window. Yes, we can't interfere, the past can't be redeemed, Mark, and we shouldn't redeem it either. It is these scars that made us who we are. Don't think about repairing them, because they are the testimony of the road we have walked. Living in the present is the most important thing. Mark listened to Peter's words, raised his head and asked him, Dad, what are your regrets? My regrets. Peter fell into deep thought. If it weren't for the meteor shower that he watched with his girlfriend, perhaps he wouldn't be far away from home and travel here. But if he hadn't traveled here, he wouldn't have so many sons and daughters. The biggest regret in life is to insist on the wrong thing and give up easily. I should have reached this level, so I don't have any regrets. Peter thought about it and said so to his son. Mark listened to Peter's words and nodded. I will not make the mistake of insisting and giving up easily, Dad, Mark said to Peter, but I don't want to lie, nor do I want to deceive you. He took a deep breath and cast an unprecedented firm look at Peter. Dad, if what happened to Barry and Bruce happened to me, I would definitely reverse time and change it, even if it costs me anything. Peter listened to Mark's words with a look of astonishment. He had just praised his kindness, but he didn't expect that this kid would say that he was willing to pay any price to change reality. It's not strange for Zoo to say this. After all, this kind of words fits his personality. He didn't expect Mark to lose his mind like this. With a warm current flowing through his heart, he said to his son, then you killed your ideal and killed your former self. If that really happened, Dad would rather you move forward. Mark bit his lip and whispered, Dad, if you weren't on the road, my ideal would have died long ago? Peter was slightly stunned when he heard this. His emotions became complicated, and he shook his head gently and said, No, Dad won't let that happen. He cast his eyes into the night, and it seemed that the rain had gradually stopped. The next day, early in the morning, Bruce and Barry followed Thomas back to Gotham, and they planned to use Gotham's equipment to find Reverse Flash. Peter took Azu, Clark and Star-Lord to Europe to find out the situation. On the way to Gotham on a private plane, Bruce asked his father, Dad, how is Detective Gordon? Gordon, hearing this name, Thomas was a little dazed. The Joker cut his throat. Hearing his father's words, Bruce fell silent. Sorry, kid, for letting you hear these things, Thomas apologized to Bruce. No, I'm not in a state where I can't bear any bad news, Bruce said to his father. I know, Father, it hurts more for you to tell me about this than it does for me. Thomas flew the plane in silence. After a while, he said to Bruce, I have to walk out of the darkness. Although most of the time, I'm like a walking corpse, but some things must be done. Bruce, I know you have never walked out of that alley, and neither have I. We, father and son, have embarked on the same path, but I hope that one day you will get out of the alley, he said to his son in a hoarse voice. I am a person corrupted by my own unbearable pain. I am a person who is called a good person but has blood on my hands. I am a person who has no attachment to life, but you don't have to be like me, Bruce. I'm not the protagonist of the story. You can let go of the past. Even if you lose me and your mother, you still have people who love you, Alfred, Peter Patrick. Don't be like me, Bruce. You deserve a better life. Looking at his father's true feelings, Bruce suddenly had an irresistible urge to cry. No, Father, you are the protagonist of my life and my story. Thomas shook his head and said to his son, your life has just begun. Time soon came tonight. Bruce left the desolate and abandoned Wayne Manor, put on his bat uniform, and his dark figure swept through the city. Looking at the familiar and unfamiliar city in front of him, he felt mixed emotions. The city filled with fear and violence now seemed to have no vitality. Everything was filled with a sad and heavy atmosphere that made him feel sad. Swoosh! Bruce shot the hook gun and jumped onto a two-story bungalow that was not very high. Just as he was about to get up, he suddenly heard a voice from behind. "Old man, are you finally willing to show up?" Bruce heard the familiar voice, turned his head, and was shocked to see a figure rushing towards him. A woman dressed as a clown, with oil paint on her face, a scarlet bloody mouth opened, and hid him with a hammer in her hand. Seeing the appearance of the clown and the voice he made, Bruce felt a little weird. "I always feel that the other party gives me a familiar feeling." A series of thoughts flashed through his mind, and Bruce reacted quickly. While retreating, he grabbed the opponent's arm. With a bang, Bruce threw the opponent out. The Joker fell to the ground, with a crazy smile on his face, holding a hammer and rushing towards him with a laugh. The next second, Thomas fell to the ground in a bat costume and blocked Bruce. Blocking the Joker's attack, he punched the opponent and knocked him back. "Stand back, Bruce, I'll deal with her." Two Batmen. The Joker looked at the two Batmen and grinned in surprise. "I like it. It seems that this city has your imitator, old man." The Joker, with a crazier expression, rushed towards Thomas. Thomas turned around to resist the Joker's attack. With a bang, he hit the opponent backwards heavily. The Joker stood up swiftly and dodged Thomas's attack. She swung the hammer and rushed towards the opponent quickly. Thomas grabbed the opponent's arm and punched the Joker in the cheek. With a bang, paint splash on the clown's face. Thomas wanted to continue attacking, but the clown took a step back and lost his balance. "Watch out!" Seeing the clown falling, Thomas immediately reached out to grab him. Unexpectedly, he just grabbed him and was pulled down by the laughing clown the next moment. Seeing his father and the clown falling together, Bruce rushed over quickly and tried to grab Thomas. But he was a step too late. Bang bang, the two fell from the second floor and hit the ground. The clown pressed Thomas down and asked him while laughing, "Do you know how much of a failure you are, old man?" Thomas put his hand against the clown's wrist holding the axe. "I know, haha, liar. How can an angry person have self-knowledge?" The clown stood up, broke free from Thomas's grip, and took a step back. "But old man, you look like a romantic. When you fell just now, I thought you would use me as a scapegoat." Holding the hammer, she laughed wildly and rushed towards Thomas again. Bang! Thomas grabbed her wrist with both hands. "You want to go back to the past? I want to go back to a world without you." The Joker glared at him and said, "Really, even if that means not having you too?" Thomas looked into her eyes. "Martha, in the past, there was a man and a woman, with their only son, who walked into that alley after watching a movie." The Joker's expression became more and more angry as he listened to Thomas's story about Crime Alley. "Shut up. They encountered robbers." "Shut up. 2 gunshots." "Shut up. Shut up. Shut up." The Joker closed his eyes, his face twisted with pain. "Stop talking." Plop, kneeling on the ground helplessly, tears flowed down her face. "Stop talking." Thomas' hoarse voice continued. "Men and women fell, and their sons survived." He pulled up the trembling Martha and hugged her shoulders. "We now have the opportunity to change, erase history and make this a reality. And such a crazy thing. I need to ask you, Martha, should I do it?" Martha, with tears in her eyes, buried her head in Thomas' arms and cried, "Promise me, you will do it." "I promise." The two hugged each other. Martha asked her husband, "Tell me about Bruce. What happened to him after we died? Did he inherit his father's business?" Martha, with tears on her face, asked Thomas, "Did he become a doctor?" "No. Sorry, Mom." Bruce stood behind the two of them without knowing when. He slowly took off the mask on his face, revealing uncontrollable sadness and pain. "I'm sorry, Mom. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 533 Conversation between Bruce and the Joker's mother. You are my Bruce." Martha the clown saw Bruce take off the bat mask and reveal his true face. She stood there in shock, looking at him with wide eyes. "I'm sorry, Mom, I'm sorry." Bruce looked at his mother sadly. "That day, my father and mother walked into the alley with their only son. When they left after watching the movie, gunshots rang out, not 1 shot, but 2 shots. In that reality, their son survived, but their father and mother died. Hearing Bruce's words, Martha burst into tears instantly. The moment before, I stood in front of my parents intact, still a child who was deeply loved and full of love, and the next moment, I stood there broken, alone. I stood there broken, and became alone from then on. I instantly became helpless, unable to stop their bleeding. I couldn't do anything, could turn back time and restore everything to normal. At that time I could only scream and watch my mother and father die one after another, and the murderer who killed them escaped in the night. Listening to her son's story, Martha covered her mouth with her hands. Bruce stared at his mother's clown face, and suddenly he couldn't suppress his sadness. The figure walked out from the depths of the shadows, holding a black pistol in his hand. The first shot hit my father, who was trying to protect his wife and children. I still remember the scorching fire, and then another shot, and my mother fell down. Somehow, the man with the gun suddenly disappeared, returned to the shadows, and went somewhere. I was left alone. I screamed over and over again at the two bodies of my parents who were bleeding and dying on the ground. Bruce murmured in a low voice, "The death of my father and mother took me away and wiped out the existence of the person I could have become if you could live to see me get to that point." He raised his head and looked at his mother, who covered her mouth with tears. "In a sense, I died with you, Mother, that night, my son. What kind of pain have you experienced?" Martha had woken up from her clown state at this time. She wanted to hug Bruce and give him what she owed him, and wanted to touch her son for real. But soon she was trapped in pain and guilt. Her son had taken the same path as his father and became Batman, who was burdened with darkness and pain. She could not accept this. No. This shouldn't be the case. Martha, who was emotionally broken, could not face her son. She took a few steps back, looked at Bruce desperately, and turned to run forward. Seeing his mother run away in a breakdown, Bruce was stunned for a moment, and then immediately chased after her. Thomas also chased after his wife. "Martha, stop, no," Martha shouted in pain, "don't get close to me." Seeing the other party's emotional state, Bruce and Thomas had no other choice but to follow Martha. Martha ran all the way and finally ran to the vicinity of Wayne Manor. In the wilderness covered with weeds, Martha, who was mentally broken, moved forward and climbed over the grass. The dark night sky completely blocked her sight. While running, her feet slipped, she lost her balance, and fell into a cave covered with the weeds. "No. Mom," Bruce cried out in pain when he saw his mother falling into the same bat cave where he had fallen. He rushed over as fast as he could, but he didn't grab his mother's hand and watched her fall to the bottom of the cave. Black bats flew out of the sky, blocking his vision. After the bats flew away, Bruce immediately jumped into the cave, knelt on the ground, and held his mother's hand lying on the ground. "Mom." Martha woke up from her coma, opened her eyes and saw Bruce's face. Tears burst out again. "Bruce, Mom, I'm sorry." She reached out and stroked Bruce's face, saying with guilt and heartache, "This world is a very bad world." "No, Mom." Bruce held his mother's hand tightly. "I am not walking alone in the darkness. Mr. Patrick and Alfred helped me on my way. I did not become a person who was completely occupied by hatred." Bruce could no longer hold back his tears, which fell on his mother's face. "I lost you, but I was reborn, Mom. My life has entered a path full of important goals." He said the most true words in his heart to his mother. Perhaps, murder's the worst. It kills a child's father and takes away his mother, making him lost in the darkness. No other child or adult should suffer the same pain. This is a more real and obvious fact than anything else. Even in childhood, even if I still have a vague understanding of this, I understand the power of this truth. Although I am still a child, I have decided to take action based on my painful experience, even if I only have vague ideas at the time. Bruce held his mother's hand tightly to his chest. "Mom, I am not completely desperate about this world because of your death. In my opinion, it is still beautiful and worth saving." Listening to Bruce's words, Martha smiled with relief. That is the best thing I have ever heard in my life, Bruce." Martha leaned on her son's arms and slowly closed her eyes. Plop! Thomas also jumped down at this time. After seeing his wife fainted, he immediately came over to check on her condition. Martha's head was hit hard. "We have to send her to the hospital." Bruce was in a state of pain. When he heard his father say that his mother needed to be sent to the hospital immediately, he immediately stood up holding his mother. "I'll go drive." Thomas came over and held his wife's right hand. Looking at his pale wife, he whispered, "Hold on, Martha." At the same time, London, England. In an underground space hidden in the dark night, Louise Lane, who had changed the world line, was hiding in a basement. This was an underground shelter during World War II, located under the original Westminster Abbey in the UK. Louise, leaning against the wall, recalled the catastrophe 6 months ago. 6 months ago, she and Jimmy rushed to Paris, France to attend a fashion show. No one thought that it was the beginning of a disaster. At that time, he and Jimmy were visiting the Sacré-Cœur in Montmartre. As the two were talking, a deafening boom sound came, followed by a huge wave that rolled up countless buildings. The waves, carrying thousands of momentum, rushed towards the two people. "Run! Jimmy!" Louise shouted to Jimmy. "Run!" Jimmy came over and grabbed Louise, who was wearing high heels. "You are dressed like a supermodel today, Louise, but it's a pity that we have to run away in embarrassment before we can take pictures," Jimmy complained while picking up the camera with one hand to take pictures of the shocking scene of the nearby buildings being destroyed. "Now is not the time to take pictures, run." Seeing that the other party was still busy taking pictures, Louise hurriedly grabbed him and ran forward. Behind them were the rolling and roaring waves that were carrying cars and pedestrians. Louise saw that she couldn't run in high heels, so she took off her high heels and ran forward barefoot. "Go to the highest point," Jimmy shouted to her. "Go to the highest point of the church, that is the highest point in Paris." The two ran all the way and finally entered the church, running towards the stairs to prepare to climb to the highest point. When they were about to reach the top of the stairs, Jimmy saw the people below who had tripped and called for help. In the end, he gritted his teeth and went down to help the passerby who had fallen. "Austin, wait!" Seeing Jimmy going down to help, Louise stretched out her hand and shouted to him in horror. "It's too late." Just as Jimmy helped the passerby who had fallen and was about to climb the stairs, the sea water rushed over with a boom and swept Jimmy and the passerby away. "No! Jimmy!" Louise cried out in pain. The elderly priest who was traveling with her grabbed her hand. "It's too late, child, hurry up." Louise, who was almost emotionally collapsed, was pulled up to the top of the church by the priest. Standing on the top of the church, looking at Paris, which had become a vast ocean, Louise was in despair. The priest next to her shook his head solemnly and sighed. "Everything we believed in, everything we relied on, is gone. No, there is still hope." Louise forced herself to cheer up, threw away the negative emotions, and picked up Jimmy's camera. "I want to take away Jimmy's last work. This is his hard work. I want everyone to see what happened here," she whispered, raised her head, and looked at the top of her head where the voice came from. The Amazon woman riding the flying machine flew over and said that she could pick up the survivors. But only women and children could be taken away. The priest was also forbidden to board the ship because he was a false god worshipper in their mouths. After that, Louise entered the Amazons' base camp in London. The Amazons razed London from the stone plain, turning the originally prosperous city into a city surrounded by jagged rocks. The prosperous international city of the past no longer exists. Imprisoned in London, Louise discovered that Jimmy was secretly the contact person for the dialogue between Cyborg and the British resistance movement. In order to avenge Jimmy, Louise took on this task automatically. The Amazons provide training and re-employment for all women, so that they believe that they can promote the peace process. In addition, the Amazons will hold fighting competitions regularly to select women suitable for fighting, and then train and transform them. Louise escaped on the eve of her transformation. "I hope things won't get any worse than they could have been." Coming back to her senses from her memories, Louise stood up and prepared to go outside to investigate. Chapter 534 Louise, I'm just a time traveler. Wrapping her clothes tightly around her body, Louise took a deep breath, covered her face with a scarf, and walked outside. In the ruined city, Louise walked carefully. She had to be careful of the Amazons who might appear at any time. "This is Louise Lane from the Daily Planet." Louise took out the communicator and used the radio to send a message to Cyborg. "I'm not sure if you can hear me, Cyborg. My battery is running low. I guess I'll be like my batteries when the Amazons catch me." Entering an abandoned subway tunnel, Louise said to the communicator in her hand, "Rumor has it that they dragged an Atlantean from the sea yesterday, and Wonder Woman's lasso of truth made him speak. Aquaman will lead his army across the English Channel. They are ready to gather together and launch a full-scale attack on Wonder Woman." She took a deep breath of the turbid and moldy air in the abandoned subway and continued, "The final battle is expected to come soon. If I can't contact the resistance by then, it will be terrible." Louise was about to continue speaking when she suddenly heard footsteps coming towards her. She immediately turned off the communicator when she noticed someone coming, trying to hide in the dark. Swoosh! Before he could take any action, the sound of an arrow breaking through the air was heard. The sharp arrow brushed her body and pierced into the wall next to her. The wall dust was shaken and fell. Frightened, Lois dared not move. "The night cannot hide your tracks," a female voice came out from the other end of the tunnel. Lois looked up and saw a group of Amazons appear in front of her. The leader, an Amazon with long brown hair, Artemis, spoke coldly to her. Artemis, a close friend of Wonder Woman, is also a typical Amazon. She has a strong ambition and competitive spirit. In the battle for Wonder Woman, she once replaced Diana and became the representative of Amazon in the outside world. However, this Amazon was Wonder Woman for a short time. Her aggressive personality made her lose the title of Wonder Woman quickly. Standing next to her were Hawkgirl and Vixen McBee. McBee, who changed the world line, did not have the experience of working on Peter's farm, but became a subordinate of the Amazons. "You are Lois Lane, right?" Artemis asked her. "Can I refuse to answer this question? If you don't want your head to be pierced like the wall just now, then, you can try." Artemis waved her hand, and the female Vixen McBee came up and squeezed her hand. Okay, I'm Lois Lane." Feeling a pain, Lois had to say her name. "Our queen has been searching for your whereabouts. No matter how tight your mouth is, the queen's lasso of truth will make you tell what you know." Artemis asked her men to take Lois away. As soon as the Amazon team walked to the entrance of the tunnel, they saw a figure standing in front of them. The shadow slowly walked out of the shadow of the ruined building, with his hands folded on his chest, and appeared in front of everyone. "She can't let you take it away, Amazon women," Azu's voice came from the darkness. "Now, everyone raise your hands, otherwise I don't mind shooting you to death." As he spoke, Azu's eyes flashed red, as if he could shoot out heat vision at any time. Azu has been waiting outside for a long time. As for why he appeared here? After arriving in London, Peter and Zu, Clark and Star-Lord went to look for clues separately. Zu first caught an Amazon nearby and asked for some information. He knew that these people were chasing Lois Lane. Now he happened to meet these guys, so he would not let them take Lois away. "Who are you?" Artemis frowned and said to Zu. "John Padrick, son of Padrick." After Zu said his name, his thermal vision directly started from zero frame and pierced through the shoulder of the Amazon next to him with a sizzle. The Amazon warrior who was penetrated by the thermal vision immediately groaned and fell backwards to the ground. "Now, raise your hands obediently, and I will spare your lives." Zu pinched his waist with both hands, and the red light in his eyes was faintly visible. "Asshole!" Seeing Zu knock down an Amazon warrior in an instant, Artemis' eyes turned red. She rushed towards Zu fiercely and slashed at Zu with a long sword in her hand. At the same time, Hawkgirl and McBee also attacked Zu. With a bang, Zu crushed the ground, flew into the sky, and punched Hawkgirl. At the same time, he grabbed McBee's claws that were attacking him. McBee looked at Zu flying in the air in shock. She didn't expect the opponent's speed to be so fast. Bang! Zu swung his fist and hit McBee's chest. McBee, who was hit hard on the ground, rolled out along the tunnel floor full of ruins. "I've said it before, black people are unreliable. It seems that it was not a good idea for your father to let you be a housekeeper, McBee." After complaining that McBee became an accomplice of the Amazons after the world line changed, Zu shot his hot side at Artemis who was attacking him. Artemis, who was unable to react in time, was directly pierced through the chest by Zu's hot side. Artemis, with blood overflowing from her mouth, covered her chest with a piercing pain and knelt directly on the ground. Then Zu's hot sight shot at the rest of the Amazon warriors. Although the Amazons have superhuman physical fitness, they cannot resist Azu's hot vision and are easily knocked down by Azu in an instant. With a loud bang, Azu fell to the ground and looked at Artemis who was defeated by her. Shaking her head, Azu said to the other party contemptuously, "You are just a group of incompetent and self-righteous damn Amazon women. It is a foolish dream to want to rule the world. You are not gods either. Let me tell you who is the real god." He grabbed Artemis with red eyes. "There are only two gods flying in the sky in this world, my father and I." Bang! Azu slammed the other party to the ground. Artemis, who felt a sharp pain all over her body, looked at Azu, holding her chest and gasping for breath. She had never thought that there was such a superhero in this world. She didn't even see the other party's movements clearly just now. Louise on the other side opened her mouth in astonishment. As a veteran reporter interviewing superheroes, she had never heard of the other party's name. And who is Patrick? Possessing such a powerful force that could crush Artemis and the Amazons. Looking at Zhu, Louise suddenly felt hopeful. If this superhero who called himself Son of Patrick joined her side, there might be a chance to stop the Amazons and Atlanteans. She was thinking about whether to go up and greet him when she heard a sound of breaking air. Then there was a slight vibration on the ground. In Louise's astonished eyes, another figure fell from the sky. A tall and slender figure with a beard, a familiar figure to Louise, stepped on the gravel and walked towards her. Peter walked in front of Louise, looked at the reporter who was hiding on the front line, and extended his hand to her. After receiving the message from Zhu, he immediately rushed here. The scene he saw was the Amazons who were solved by Zhu, and Louise who was in a daze next to him. "Louise Lane, right?" Peter asked her. He was indeed somewhat impressed by the fact that this woman without superpowers could hold on for so long. "Yes, I'm Louise from the Daily Planet. I'm Peter Patrick." "I've heard of your name, Miss Lane." Peter smiled at her slightly, pretending to be unfamiliar with Louise. Hearing Peter say his own name, Louise was stunned for a moment. "Are you brothers?" She pointed at Azu who was walking over and asked. Peter, he was controlled by Louise and couldn't move. Hearing Louise's unreliable words, Azu glared at him. "This is my father." Louise felt a little incredible when she heard Azu say Peter was her father. "Is there such a young father?" "You are superheroes, right?" Louise forced herself to suppress the strange feeling in her heart and asked him. "You can say that, or put it another way, we should be considered travelers," Peter said to her. "Traveler, yes, a time traveler." As he spoke, he cast his eyes on Artemis, Hawkgirl, and McBee beside him and asked, "Are these people tracking you?" Louise wondered what time traveler meant, and nodded subconsciously. "Yes, when that tsunami hit, I was in Paris, and the Amazons took me to the training camp in Themyscira. After I escaped, I must have triggered the alarm, so these goddesses of vengeance have been chasing me. I need to pass on the information I know to Cyborg, but I don't know if the device has no power or the Amazons are interfering," Louise said, casting her eyes on Peter. "Mr. Patrick, can you help me get out of here? I need to pass on the information. It's very important, of course, but before that, I need to do something important." Peter walked up to Artemis, looked down at the other party who was covering his wound, and asked, "I need you to take me to see Diana. You should know where she is, right?" Hearing that Peter wanted to see Diana, Artemis was slightly stunned. Is this guy so confident? Chapter 535, Fighting for Yourself, The Death of Hal Jordan. At the same time, in Fawcett City, the United States, the voice of the President of the United States came from the TV. "Our world is going through a violent transition phase of great change. I know that the number of people who died in the battle between Wonder Woman and Aquaman is beyond imagination. Like you, I hope that the superhumans in this world can unite and stop the conflict between Atlantis and Amazon." The president's expression was extremely heavy, but that hope is placed on the wrong object. Those people with superpowers have failed to organize in any meaningful way. In an ordinary apartment building, Shazam Billy Batson was curled up on the sofa watching the president's TV speech. Several of his brothers and sisters next to him asked him what they should do now. Billy, who did not transform into Shazam and was still a teenager at this time, shook his head and said, "What should we do?" "We do nothing, Mary. We are just a group of children." His sister Mary sat next to him. "Strictly speaking, yes, but we are a group of children with superpowers." Billy divided his power among several brothers and sisters, and everyone began to analyze whether to help. Listening to the discussion of his brothers and sisters, Billy sighed, supported his chin with his hand, and said, "Remember what happened when we fought Wonder Woman last time? We almost died." Listening to Billy talking about the last time they almost died, everyone fell silent and stopped talking. Only the voice of the president on the TV came from the room. "Fellow countrymen, we can't stand idly by. Gotham Central Hospital." Bruce, Thomas, and Barry stood in the hospital corridor. Looking at his mother lying in the ward, Bruce felt a little heavy. He didn't expect his mother to become a clown. The person closest to him became the criminal he hated the most. Fate really played tricks on people. "This is not your fault, Bruce." Thomas seemed to see Bruce's pain, and he put his hand on Bruce's shoulder. "Facing reality, we are all powerless. Hey, come and take a look." Barry's voice soon interrupted the two. Bruce and Thomas rushed to the public lounge and saw the president's speech being broadcast on TV. We can't just sit there and wait for others to save us. We have to fight for ourselves." Staring at the TV screen, Thomas fell into deep thought. Barry, who was watching TV next to him, suddenly covered his head and groaned in pain. Past memories emerged in his mind and then began to blur. Covering his head, Barry fell to the ground in pain. "What's wrong with you, Barry?" Bruce asked in shock. They won't stop. More memories are starting to change, about my father and mother. Reverse Flash stole my life," Barry gasped and said. "It's worse than before. I don't think there's much time before my memories are replaced. Once that happens, I won't remember what the world looked like in the past. Everything will disappear." Thomas immediately took out some medicine from his belt and said to him, "I've prepared some phenytoin sodium, which is a sedative that should slow down the activity in your brain." Taking out the syringe, Thomas used the syringe to push the sedative into Barry's veins. "You must fight it. Don't give up, Barry. Don't forget my son. Don't forget Bruce. Don't forget what happened in the past. Everything needs you to redeem it." Padrick Farm. Raven, Tom, Mark and others also saw the president's speech on TV. Mark listened while casting his eyes to the night outside. "I don't know how Dad and the others are doing," Mark murmured in a low voice. "If you are worried, you can try to make a phone call," Raven said to him, "or you can ride a broom to Europe to find Dad." "No, the Ministry of Magic stipulates that magic cannot be used in front of Muggles," Mark said seriously. "You are not on the Hogwarts world, so you don't have to abide by this, Mark." Raven shrugged her shoulders like Peter. "Besides, you are not a person who completely abides by the rules, otherwise you would not have followed Harry and the others into the Chamber of Secrets." Glancing at Tom, who was silent next to her, she continued, "If you were not lucky, you might have been bitten by a big snake in the Chamber of Secrets." Raven couldn't help but complain about Tom again. Mark looked at Tom awkwardly and turned the subject back to the TV. "Mr. President is right, the people here have to fight for themselves." Mark took a deep breath. "If possible, I would like to go to Europe to stop this war." Tom leaned against the closet, his expression unchanged, and said to him, "Your personal strength will not play any role, Mark. Besides, our main task now is to catch Reverse Flash. I know I'm weak, but Dad said that what you are destined to become is never the strength of your strength. You're just an ordinary pilot. You don't have superpowers. Why do you want to go?" At the airport in Seaside City, Hector Hammond asked Hal Jordan with a frown. Hector Hammond, in the original world line, was the arch-enemy of Green Lantern Hal Jordan. Originally just an ordinary man, he once found a meteor fragment in a forest. This meteor fragment came from the same meteor as the meteor fragment that caused the Gorilla Grodd and his race to evolve on the African continent. Hector discovered through observation that the plants around the meteor fragment had evolved very rapidly, so he irradiated himself with a meteor fragment, and the radiation gave Hector powerful intelligence, psychic abilities, and immortality. But that was in the original world line, and now everything in the world has changed. Hal Jordan did not become a Green Lantern, and Hector did not become a supervillain. Now Hal is an ordinary airplane pilot, and Hector has become a ground crew member working at the airport. Although the two did not become archenemies, Hector still hates Hal. Someone has to do it, doesn't he? We need to fight for ourselves. Hal replied to Hector. He glanced at the F-35 fighter. It looks like she's ready to take off. Hector put down the inspection board in his hand. She's ready. You have to thank me. In less than 24 hours, I managed to redesign her and reduce her weight by 1,400 pounds so that she can carry this attack missile. Hal patted the plane with satisfaction. You are a genius, Hector. Hector's face was a little heavy. He said to Hal, and you are an idiot. Hal, the world is on the verge of self-destruction, and you plan to fly into enemy territory and drop a bomb. Hector found that he still hated Hal's smiling face. And you still put that unchanging and self-righteous smile on your face. You know what it means. Why are you still smiling? You know what? I hate your smiling face the most. No matter what bad things happen, you smile. I hate your inappropriate smile. I hate that everything about you is full of sunshine. Even when facing the threat of death, listening to Hector's words, Hal's face, which had been smiling, stopped smiling. Do you think I don't know how high the stakes are, Hector? Hal's voice became serious. Do you think that before that happened, I wasn't worried about myself, Carol, Hal's girlfriend, or the rest of the world? The fact is, I was scared, but if I kept thinking about those things, I couldn't get into the cockpit. Just thinking about those things, I would be like those so-called superheroes, hiding in the dark." As he spoke, Hal walked up the ladder to the fighter. Hector watched the other party walk onto the plane. Originally, he hated the other party and wished that the other party would be unlucky, but now, he didn't know why he hoped that the other party would stay. He looked at Hal with a complicated look. At this time, Hal had put on his flight helmet and gave him a thumbs up. Hector was stunned for a moment, then slowly raised his thumb and responded to Hal. "Good luck, Hal." Hector prayed silently, watching the plane take off and fly into the night. Hal, who was in the cockpit, lowered his head to look at the photo near the instrument panel of the plane. It was a photo of himself and Carol. "Operation Night Light, guys, there is some kind of invisible shield around the island, so be careful," Hal spoke to his comrades on the radio. The plane soon entered the British Isles, and the fighter flying in the front was attacked before entering the island. The tall female giant, who transformed herself into a giant, grabbed a plane and crushed it. Boom, damn it, Hal dealt with the female giant while shooting. Hal, who was operating the plane, pressed the bomb button towards the transparent barrier. But the button did not respond. It stuck. Shit, boom. To make matters worse, the tail of his fighter was shot, and after the explosion, the fighter fell down at a high speed. A comrade shouted from the side, "Hal, you must parachute. I have to drop the bomb first, forget about the missiles. Can you eject now?" Hal glanced at the photo on the dashboard and said, "Yes, okay, Hal, we'll meet on the other side and eject on the count of 3, his teammates counted to him on the radio. 3, Hal's plane circled and fell. 2, 1, now, eject, Hal. Hal did not eject, but rushed towards the shield. At the critical moment, he finally pressed the bomb switch. Hal's plane crashed straight into the shield. Hal held the photo in his mobile phone and said his final goodbye calmly. "Goodbye, Carol." Boom, a deafening explosion sounded. He succeeded, the position is destroyed. Chapter 536, The War That Decides the Fate of the World begins. The next day, early in the morning, a group of American fighters was attacked by stealth fighters on their way to attack the Amazons. The first person confirmed dead was pilot Hal Jordan. The news of Hal Jordan's death came on TV. Barry in the hospital was stunned when he saw the news, and then a wave of sadness came over him. "Hal," he murmured and held his hands weakly. Although he knew that Hal Jordan did not become the Green Lantern in the changed timeline, he did not expect that Hal still chose to become the first sacrifice for this war. Looking up, he looked at Thomas in the distance and walked towards him. "We have to do something," Barry said to Thomas seriously. "People are dying, real people are dying. I can't pretend that this is just a dream that will be erased, but it will indeed be erased." Thomas' expression remained unchanged. "Neither you nor I can change it." Barry shook his head. "I may forget everything I know at any time, and if we fail, we won't be able to stop Reverse Flash. Even if we find Reverse Flash, trying to figure out what he changed in the past is like trying to find a needle in a haystack." Barry became more and more excited. "Is this the ending we have to face?" Thomas was silent for a moment, looking at Bruce, who was taking care of his mother in the ward. "Although I don't want to admit it, this is the world we can't get rid of," Thomas said with mixed feelings. "Barry, there's only a glimmer of hope. We tried to change the past, but it's not easy." "I know." Barry took a deep breath. "So we must fight against Aquaman and Wonder Woman. We need every known superhuman to help us. Now Mr. Patrick has gone to Europe. We can't just sit here and wait for nothing. We need more help to help Mr. Patrick and his friends." Barry just finished speaking when he heard a voice coming from a distance. "You're right, we must unite." Cyborg and his group walked from the hospital corridor. Behind him were Shazam, Billy and several children, as well as superheroes such as Elemental Girl, Enchantress, and Demon Etrigan. "I have received news from Lois Lane that Aquaman is preparing to lead a large army to attack the Amazons. They are preparing to cross the English Channel today. Batman, are you willing to join us?" Cyborg asked Thomas. "Do you really want me to join, Cyborg?" Thomas asked with a frown. "Yes, because this is an urban legend built on Batman for decades." Cyborg looked into Thomas' eyes. "I know Batman is just an ordinary man in a costume, but others see him as something more important. They have heard those stories and are willing to believe him. They think Batman is invincible." Barry listened to Cyborg's words, glanced at Thomas, who was silent, and said, "Maybe it's difficult to make this decision, but that shouldn't be a reason for anyone to back off. We all contribute something, and we all lose something. He knew that Thomas had been persuaded by Cyborg, but because of his arrogant personality like Bruce, he would never take the initiative to say it. Taking a deep breath, Barry said to everyone, "We have to leave now. Hey, I think you need some more professional people." While Barry and his friends were talking, Raven and his group also came to the hospital. Cyborg looked up and found that almost everyone in the Padrick family had come. Raven, Mark, Loki, Tom, Rhea and Kara, led by Kara, walked towards Barry and others. Kara was dressed in a Supergirl uniform, with a blue uniform with the letter S engraved on the chest, and a red short skirt with black stockings given to her by Peter. "You need professional help, especially to deal with Diana. I am quite good at it." Since Diana and Kara had been together on the farm for a while, they knew each other's fighting style. Cyborg looked at the Padrick family coming towards him, and his mood suddenly became comfortable. Barry had told him about the strength of this family before. He looked at Kara and Rhea. If these two beings, who were called Kryptonians by Barry, joined the battlefield, they would definitely be able to stop Aquaman and Diana. "Does your father know about your decision?" Thomas, who was silent next to him, asked Raven and his group. "Of course, we have contacted my father in advance and told him our decision. My father said he supports us," Raven replied, "but I think if we rush to Europe now, it is not suitable for children to join." She cast her eyes on Billy and his group next to her. Billy pointed at himself in confusion. "Kids, are you talking about us?" "Of course." Raven looked at Billy's brothers and sisters. "No one can protect you on the battlefield." Billy looked at Mark and Tom behind Raven, and couldn't help complaining in his heart, "Aren't you also children?" "Of course we are different." Raven saw Billy's inner complaints and said to him, "Our father has trained us since we were young, and we have experienced countless battles more tragic than this." After hearing this, Billy and his brothers and sisters were instantly stunned by Raven's words. "What do you mean by a battle more tragic than this? Have you experienced more than one world-destroying crisis?" Billy hesitated for a moment and asked Raven, "Who is your father?" "Peter Padrick, the greatest father in the world." Raven looked at the sky outside the window and frowned. "I don't know how my father is doing in Europe." On the other side, Peter, who was missed by Raven, escorted Artemis to New Demuscula. The city of London was raised on the boulder plain by Wonder Woman's magic. The city that rose from the ground seemed to stand in the sky. The sea water on the shore was beating the waves vigorously, and the bright sunshine was shining down. Although there was a war coming soon, everything seemed quiet and peaceful now. Peter and Clark, Azu, Star Louise, escorted Artemis, Vixen and Hawkgirl to this place. "Is this London?" Star-Lord looked at the city surrounded by rocks in shock, his eyes full of incredible expressions. "The once prosperous island has become like this now? What did you do?" Star-Lord cast an angry look at Artemis. "How many innocent people will die because of this?" Artemis faced the angry Star-Lord with an unusually calm expression. "Really? Does anyone care how many innocent Amazons died tragically?" Clark next to her couldn't help but say to her, "That's just a problem between you and the Atlanteans. You shouldn't involve humans." Facing Clark's questioning, Artemis didn't speak. The wound that Azu stabbed her in the past was still aching. Now she didn't want to talk, and she had nothing to say, so she just kept silent. Lois Lane followed behind everyone, her eyes fixed on Peter and Clark. Just now, Clark told her on the road how he and his group entered this world. Time traveler, so this is what Peter Padrick meant by time traveler? Taking a deep breath, she stared at Peter's back. If what Clark said was true and the world line didn't change, would she have met Peter on the farm? Speaking of which, she really had a cousin in Smallville, but she heard that she died in a car accident a long time ago. If her cousin Chloe hadn't died, maybe she would really get to know this family and have a different life. Just as Lois was thinking about it, everyone arrived in front of the hall. The Amazons who received the news quickly surrounded Peter and his group. Seeing the murderous Amazons around her, Lois nervously cast her eyes on Peter. "I just hope he can really convince Wonder Woman." Diana, fully armed, wearing armor and a golden crown, slowly walked towards Peter and his group. After seeing the tied-up Artemis, she frowned and cast an unceremonious look at Peter. "Are you a rebel?" Diana asked Peter harshly. "No, I'm not. I'm just an ordinary person who came to try to talk to you." "Diana, ordinary people?" Diana snorted coldly. "Ordinary people can't defeat the goddesses of vengeance. Tell me, who are you? Are you from Aquaman?" "I'm Peter Padrick," Peter slowly said to her. "Maybe you don't remember this name, but if the world line doesn't change, our relationship shouldn't be so tense." Peter slowly stretched out his hand. Then, in Wonder Woman's astonished eyes, she saw the surrounding environment change dramatically. A farm appeared in front of the hall, and a familiar feeling came over her. "What did you do?" Diana in this world line asked in shock. "It's just a dream." "You entered the dream I created, Diana. Here, you can see countless real or fake realities. This is another reality before the timeline changed." As Peter spoke, scenes around her played out in front of her. Scenes of her getting along with Peter and his family on the farm appeared one after another, shocking her. Is this real, or a fake dream?" Diana raised her head and asked in disbelief. At the same time, some memories she had never had before emerged in her mind. She woke up from the dream, covered her forehead with her hands, and groaned in pain. Seeing that something was wrong with Diana, her men wanted to attack Peter immediately. "Stop!" Diana, covering her forehead, stopped her men. Chapter 537, Tom, who blocked the fatal blow for Riven? Are we not brother and sister? Have we really met before? Diana stroked her forehead with her hand and asked him with confusion. "Or what you showed me is reality, another reality that has never happened, that is not a reality that has never happened, but another world line. Someone changed everything and made the world develop into another situation." Peter frowned and said to him, "Your destiny should not be like this, Diana." "Shouldn't?" Diana's face instantly became angry. "My mother died at that bloody wedding, and my sisters were killed or injured because of the conspiracy of the Atlanteans. Fate forced me to take this path. Now you say my destiny should not be like this, then what should it be like? The kind of future you describe?" "No, everything is done and we can't change the past." Diana raised the Vulcan sword. "What is the purpose of showing me that kind of future? Is it just to make my pain deeper? Is it just to make me more powerless?" Facing Diana's anger, Peter shook his head calmly. "No, we can let the world line return to its original track and change everything from the source." Hearing Peter say that he could change everything, Diana's expression became hesitant and confused for a moment. "Are you talking about going back to the origin of everything?" "Yes, back to the beginning of everything." Peter stretched out his hand to her. "As long as you are willing to believe what you see." Diana covered her forehead with her hand, and the memories of the two worlds began to merge in her mind. The past scenes on the farm began to reappear in her mind. Diana's headache became more severe, and all kinds of complicated and intricate memories rushed in her mind. She could feel that Peter Padrick in front of her did not lie to her. And she seemed to have a very special feeling for him. Is that love? No, it's impossible. How could there be such an absurd thing? Diana, who was having a fierce ideological struggle in her mind and became more and more uncomfortable, shouted angrily in the astonished eyes of her subordinates, and suddenly plunged the Vulcan sword in her hand into the ground. "Queen," a subordinate came to her and said, "the Atlantean army has begun to cross the strait and launch a full-scale attack on us. We must act now." Hearing that Aquaman led the army to launch a full-scale attack, Diana ignored Peter in front of her. She gritted her teeth and grabbed the Vulcan sword and walked outside. "Keep an eye on them," she ordered her subordinates, looked deeply at Peter, and turned to leave. Peter stared at his back, his eyes narrowed slightly. "Dad, are we going to do it now?" Azu looked at the Amazons around him and asked him. "No, wait a little longer, we have to wait for a heavyweight." At the same time, Aquaman's army drove land vehicles and marched towards London. Aquaman, who was leading the way, led the army to an open area. Looking at the ruins of the surrounding buildings, he waved his hand and asked his subordinates to stop. The moment he stopped, countless Amazons rushed out of the building, drawing their bows and arrows to shoot at the Atlanteans. Swoosh! Swoosh! Countless sharp arrows pierced the heads of the Atlantean soldiers, and blood immediately spurted out. The shocked and angry Sea King immediately ordered his men to control the land vehicle and fire at the Amazon woman hiding behind a building. Boom! The released water cannon carried a powerful force and collapsed the building. The Amazons also responded quickly. As the ground shook violently, a tall minotaur broke through the surface and roared out from the ground. The Minotaur was a monster born from abnormal sexual relations between Pasiphae, the wife of King Minos of Crete, and a bull in Greek mythology. It was originally imprisoned in the maze, and now Diana released it to deal with the Atlanteans. Diana appeared with the Amazon warriors, holding the Vulcan sword. "Kill all these underwater people," Diana raised her sword and roared. Under her leadership, the Amazons rushed towards the Atlanteans like a tide. The two sides immediately engaged in a melee. Diana, who was leading the way, leaped into the air, raised the Vulcan sword, and roared as she chopped off the head of the Sea King. Her agile figure instantly moved in front of the opponent, and the Vulcan sword made a whirring sound, trying to take off the head of the Sea King with one sword. With his skilled close combat ability, the Sea King dodged Diana's attack, grabbed the opponent's arm, and threw her out with force. Flipping over and falling to the ground, Diana adjusted her direction, gathered her strength on the sword, and attacked the Sea King again. Dang! The Sea King took out the trident, and the weapons of both sides collided with each other, making a harsh sound. With his other hand holding Diana's fist, the Sea King changed his fist into palm with his other hand, preparing to attack Diana's throat. Diana, who reacted quickly, stretched out her arm to block, and the two grabbed their hands together, trying to suppress each other completely. You killed my wife," the Sea King gritted his teeth, as if he was enduring great pain. "She deserved to die. She was going to kill me. I was just protecting myself." Diana's right hand broke free from the opponent's control. She held the Vulcan sword with both hands and exerted force, gradually pressing Aquaman down. "But you're still wearing her helmet." Diana gritted her teeth and replied to him, "No, it's just a warning." Aquaman seemed to be enraged. With great power coming from his hands, he used the trident to forcefully overpower the opponent. "I can't believe that I still loved you." "Love me?" Diana sneered. "You have never really loved. You only love yourself." Hearing Diana's sarcasm, Aquaman grabbed Diana's arm and flew into the air. With a blessing of super strength, he jumped several meters high, and the trident hit the opponent with force. With a bang, Diana fell heavily to the ground. The ground was cracked by her smash, and dust flew up in an instant. Diana, who fell to the ground, felt a burning pain in her back. Enduring the pain, she picked up her Vulcan sword in anger. With a roar, Diana swung the Vulcan sword at Aquaman again. This time her speed was much faster than before. Aquaman raised the trident in his hand and tried to block it. With a clang, a harsh sound resounded in the space. Hit by Diana's powerful blow, Aquaman's body immediately flew backwards uncontrollably. Aquaman fell to the ground, and the trident in his hand also flew to the side. He tried to stand up and pick up the trident, but Diana's attack had already followed him. Aquaman had no choice but to pick up the shield on the ground to block it. With a bang, the shield was cut off by Diana's sword. Although the shield defense was broken, Aquaman also bought time and immediately retreated. Naturally, Diana would not miss this opportunity. While the Vulcan sword she swung missed, she used her shoulder to aim at Aquaman's chest and slammed into him. Bang! With a dull crash, Aquaman was directly rushed out. The street lamp beside the road, which had become a ruin, was directly broken by Aquaman's body, and then he smashed towards the abandoned building with his remaining momentum. Amidst the deafening sound, Aquaman fell into the collapsed building. Panting slightly, Diana held the Vulcan sword in her hand and walked forward, ready to chop off the opponent's head. Boom! Suddenly, there was a sound of breaking through the air above her head. Diana looked up and found a plane whizzing past. Thomas, Barry, Bruce, Raven and others appeared from the plane and all rushed to the battlefield. "That's enough, your battle should be over. Countless people died because of your fight." Cyborg raised his arm that could release energy cannons and said to Diana and Aquaman who had climbed up, "Now let your men stop fighting." Diana cast her eyes on Raven and the others. "Do you think you can stop me?" Looking at Cyborg, Diana's eyes became fierce. At the same time, the Minotaur and the Furies surrounded the Flash and his group. Shazam, Billy and several of his brothers and sisters merged into Shazam and rushed towards the Furies. Kara and Rhea dealt with the Minotaur. Raven and Tom, Cyborg and Diana fought. Imagination power, Raven used her magic wand, and the red magic power was released instantly, whistling towards Diana. Flying in the air, Diana dodged Raven's magic energy, raised her arms, and used the power of the silver bracelet to shake off Cyborg's energy bombardment. Boom! Diana fell heavily to the ground, causing the ground to collapse, and grabbed Raven who was standing unsteadily. "Avada, eat the big melon." Seeing Diana attacking Raven, Tom, who was wearing a Hogwarts uniform, released the unforgivable curse. The green killing curse, bursting out a threat that Diana could not ignore, whistled towards her. Diana had to give up attacking Raven and dodge backwards. Raven gritted her teeth and angrily used her magic wand to release more powerful energy to attack. The Black Soul Crow roared and attacked Diana. The Enchantress on the other side also came to help. "Let me do it," The enchantress raised her hands and condensed powerful magic energy. Raven thought that the other party was going to release magic on Diana. But what caught her off guard was that the enchantress suddenly aimed her magic energy at her. The destructive magic energy went towards Raven. Because she didn't expect the teammates behind her to attack her, by the time Raven reacted, the magic energy had already attacked the back of her head. Bang! The next second, in Raven's astonished eyes, Tom appeared behind her and raised his magic wand to resist the enchantress's magic. But the enchantress's powerful magic instantly knocked him out. With a bang, Tom rolled and fell directly into the ground. Chapter 538 Barry, you are the biggest villain. No, seeing Tom injured and falling to the ground, and for her, Raven's eyes instantly turned red. The magic power in her body was boiling with anger, and Raven raised her wand and instantly released a more powerful black crow. Boom! The enchantress was instantly hit by the black crow and rolled into the ruins. Cyborg saw the enchantress's betrayal and immediately understood. The president mentioned the insider and his team before, and it turned out to be this guy. He had never doubted the other party before. This witch, whose original name was Joan Moon, could be possessed by a demon in hell. By saying witch, she could transform from blonde hair and blue eyes to black-haired green-eyed enchantress. The powerful enchantress was so powerful that even Cyborg himself could not do anything to her. But this witch had been following him all the time, and he never thought that the other party would be an undercover of the Amazons. Damn it! Raising his arms, the annoyed Cyborg immediately released an energy cannon at the other party. Seeing Tom injured, Loki and Rhea immediately stepped forward to help the two blocked Diana. Are you okay, Tom? Raven was at a loss. She quickly moved to the side of Tom who was lying on the ground. She never thought that Tom would block the fatal attack for her. I'm sorry, it's my fault. Raven hugged Tom with blood flowing from the corner of his mouth, and tears instantly burst out of her eyes. Sorry. Raven released magic power with both hands, wiped away her tears, and began to treat Tom's injuries. Don't get me wrong, Raven, although Tom was in a mess, his Hogwarts uniform became tattered, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. But his injuries were not serious. The shield charm blocked most of the damage for him, and the magic he released also offset some of the energy impact. I just don't want to make my father sad. Raven hugged Tom and did not refute this time. She suddenly felt that perhaps she had a deep prejudice against this younger brother. It turned out that she was the arrogant and conceited person. I know, thank you. On the other side, Mark faced Black Manta. This supervillain, who was once the enemy of Aquaman, became an Atlantean in this world. He has a very high IQ, and the high-tech combat suit he made is extremely powerful. It can not only dive into the deep sea and fly high in the sky, but also enhance strength, and is invulnerable to swords and guns, equipped with various deadly weapons. Holding an energy gun, Black Manta released energy at Mark. Boom! The ground exploded with the impact, and Mark threw himself behind a car. With dust on his face, he panted slightly and raised his magic wand. Child, come out, this is not a place for you to fight. As long as you come out, I can send you to a safe place. As he spoke, Black Manta raised his energy gun and blasted the car with a boom. Petrified, the next moment, Mark ran out from another direction, releasing a dazzling magical energy, trying to freeze the opponent. Black Manta reacted quickly, turned around and pulled the trigger at Mark. But before he could pull the trigger of his gun, he was frozen in place. Mark, who was hiding behind the car, had just used the invisibility potion to conceal his figure and head in another direction. He didn't expect that the black magic potion he bought from Nocturne Alley would work here. On the other side of the battlefield, Bruce and Thomas, father and son, faced Aquaman. Bang! 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 Thomas, holding a pistol, dodged Aquaman's attack, stood up and pulled the trigger to shoot wildly. Bruce was standing by, staring at his father's actions in amazement. His father's Batman was really special. He actually used guns. The Batman he knew in the world of injustice was not so extreme. It seems that his father's hatred for criminals is far beyond his imagination. Swoosh! Taking advantage of the moment when Aquaman attacked Thomas, Bruce moved in front of him. With a bang, Bruce's fist was held by Aquaman. Bruce, who was agile, quickly put the plastic bomb in his hand on Aquaman's chest, then rolled to the side to avoid it. Bang! The small plastic bomb hit Aquaman hard, and the smoke and dust quickly spread out. Thomas wanted to take advantage of the situation and moved quickly, but was stabbed by the trident swept by Aquaman the next second. Bang! Thomas groaned, and his shoulder was stabbed by the trident, and he staggered backwards. Seeing his father injured, Bruce immediately stepped forward to catch his father as quickly as possible. Oops, Barry, who was at the other end of the battlefield, saw Thomas' injury and was shocked. He wanted to help the two Batmen deal with Aquaman. Unexpectedly, he was hit by a yellow lightning just as he started running at full speed. Barry withdrew from the speed and was hit to the ground and rolled. Covering his injured chest, he shook his head to make his mind clearer and tried to stand up from the ground. Look at what you've done, Barry. Suddenly, a familiar voice came into his ears. Barry looked up in shock and saw the Reverse Flash standing on the ground in a yellow uniform. Reverse Flash looked down at him. It took you longer than I thought to reach the predetermined speed, Barry, both physically and mentally. Barry's face was full of disbelief. It's you? Yes, I'm here, Barry, in this hellish world, a world torn apart by so-called superheroes. Barry looked at him, and his heart was instantly filled with anger. He stood up and punched the other party. Asshole! What have you done to this world? Facing Barry's speed, Reverse Flash moved faster, dodged Barry's fist, and hit him in the face with his backhand elbow. After being hit by the elbow, Barry was struck by lightning and staggered to the ground again. Most of the speed force in this world has been acquired by me. Do you think you can be faster than me? Reverse Flash looked coldly at Barry, who was bleeding from his nose and lying on the ground unable to stand up. As for what I did, Barry, you are my idol, my inspiration. You have asked the beauty of all this crazy behavior. Walking over, he kicked Barry backwards and rolled out. Actually, I didn't do anything. Reverse Flash said something that completely stunned Barry. What did you say? Reverse Flash walked slowly towards him. I said. You are the villain, Barry. You are your own enemy, more dangerous than I thought. He stepped on Barry's chest. But you forgot what you did, right? As he spoke, he grabbed Barry and strangled his neck from behind, controlling Barry in a strong man-locking man posture, and then pressed his other hand against Barry's temple. I want you to remember, Barry. I want you to know the truth. I can make you remember by resetting your internal vibrations, although it will hurt. As soon as he finished speaking, Barry immediately felt a piercing pain in his brain. A series of past memories emerged in his mind. He saw himself standing in front of his mother's grave, putting down a bouquet of flowers with a sad face. The voice of Reverse Flash entered his ears. Do you remember? Barry, you stood in front of your mother's grave. That day was your mother's birthday. The days of emptiness made you cross the line and go to a place you swore you would never go. You went back to the past, back to the day your mother died. Reverse Flash strangled Barry, and the high-speed friction generated powerful energy. All the painful memories poured into Barry's mind. You found me, and then at that moment, you stopped me from killing your mother. You were like a bullet through the windshield. You shattered history. Reverse Flash's voice plunged Barry into great pain. The lives of those closest to you have been pushed onto a broken path, and you changed time like an amateur. This is your fault, Barry. You created this hell. You exchanged the lives of other people in the world for your mother's life. Barry roared in pain, bursting out all his energy, breaking free from Reverse Flash's control. Go to hell. Go to hell. Reverse Flash, who was staggered by Barry's knock backwards, smiled. Very good, Barry. It seems you remember everything. The grudge between us, today, will all end here. As he said that, he swung a punch and hit Barry's face hard, splashing blood. I never killed you before, because I need the Flash, and I need you to live 100 years. After living a century, I can still use your speed force in the 25th century. In my time, bang, Reverse Flash punched Barry again, knocking him back. You know what? When you changed the time stream, I was traveling through it. Because of this, you put me in an existential paradox. You freed me from all the shackles. I disappeared from the world line. I exist outside of it. You are irrelevant to me now. I can be in your mother's womb, or kill you right this second. I can hurt you, but you can't hurt me, Barry. The legendary Flash can't hurt Albert Swan. Barry, with blood all over his face, fell to the ground and gasped for breath, looking at him. No, you are wrong. Oh? Where did I go wrong? You forgot that there is another person. He, like you, disappeared from the world line and exists outside of it. More importantly, he is more powerful than you. Swoosh, a flash of lightning passed by, and the next second, crack, a crisp sound rang out, and the Reverse Flash looked down in astonishment and looked at his left leg. His left leg was broken. Then a sharp pain came into his senses. The Reverse Flash, holding his left leg, fell to the ground and wailed in pain. Chapter 539, The World is Destroyed, Where Do We Go? He's right. You forgot a very important person, who is as isolated from the world as you are. Peter's voice sounded behind Reverse Flash. Peter, who broke Reverse Flash's leg, looked down at the man who was wailing on the ground. Now, your legs that you are so proud of can no longer run with the speed force. The great Mr. Reverse Flash can't defeat anyone. Peter stretched out his leg and stepped on Reverse Flash's other intact leg without hesitation. Reverse Flash wailed even louder, and the intense pain almost made him faint. Looking at Reverse Flash who could no longer run, Peter reached out to Barry who was lying on the ground. You are a little embarrassed now, Barry. Barry wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, looked at Reverse Flash who was lying on the ground and wailing in pain and shock, and cast his eyes on Peter. Mr. Patrick, you? Really you? What? Are you surprised to see me? Grabbing Barry's hand, Peter pulled him up. No, thank you for saving me, Mr. Patrick. Barry looked at him with guilt. I'm sorry, Mr. Patrick, it's all my fault, not Reverse Flash. It's me who changed the entire world line, and it's my willfulness that caused everything to collapse. It's not too late, Barry, you can still save it all now. Peter reached out and patted his shoulder. We want to change the tragedy of the past. This is human nature, but this is another way of escape. He cast his eyes on the world in front of him that was riddled with holes due to the war, and said to Barry, the biggest lie of the multiverse is that there are infinite possibilities. There are always better options than the present, and a more ideal life than the present, so we choose to escape into the multiverse to escape the desolate reality, and always choose a better life to deny every present, but, the present after choosing the best is nothing more than a meaningless scene. The extreme desolation under the extreme prosperity has become the only solution for the multiverse. The choices seem to be infinite, but in fact they are just locking ourselves in the cage of the ideal life we created. Peter looked into Barry's eyes, but we should all understand, Barry, this is not a normal life choice. The past is not terrible. It is the pain we endured that made us who we are now. We should not go back to correct our mistakes. Don't let tragedy define you. Hearing Peter's last words, Barry suddenly felt relieved. You're right, Mr. Patrick. It's the pain that made us who we are now. Memories of the past emerged in his mind. Although cruel, they were real memories. In the center of the battlefield, the Enchantress released a powerful magic, and the green magic energy carrying the breath of death bombarded the steel skeleton. The steel skeleton, who was unable to react in time, was hit hard and flew out, hitting the ground and splashing countless dust. Facing Shazam who rushed up, the ancient witch's witchcraft fell directly from the sky, and the green magic energy emitting strong power directly surrounded Shazam. Traitor? I'm not a traitor. Everything here is so ridiculous. I don't care which side I stand on. I just want to have some fun. After suppressing Cyborg and his group, the Enchantress told everyone her purpose. Raven put Tom down and gritted her teeth to confront the Enchantress. She put away her wand. With a little red crystal on her forehead, she exuded a black and terrifying aura. I'll let you have some fun in hell. Raven's eyes turned black, and countless black energies overflowed from her body, forming a group of condensed black energy and rushing towards the Enchantress. Feeling the terrifying aura emanating from Raven, the Enchantress gave up attacking Cyborg and others and faced Raven. Bang! A black energy carrying destructive energy pierced through the space with a roar and hit the Enchantress in an instant. The Enchantress immediately released ancient magic to fight against Raven. However, what frightened her was that her ancient magic could not resist the opponent's magic. The black magic released by Raven rushed over like a dark cloud, breaking through her ancient magic and directly surrounding her. No, the Enchantress watched in horror as Raven's magic overwhelmed her. Plop! After killing the Enchantress, Raven lost all her strength and fell to the ground helplessly. The darkness in her eyes dissipated, and the black air lingering around her body also disappeared. When the elemental girl saw Raven fall to the ground, she immediately flew over and hugged her. On the other side, Diana was fighting with Rhea and Loki. Loki, who had turned into a young man, used his magic wand to release a powerful impact magic. Diana easily dodged it and grabbed Loki with her backhand. But her attack was in vain. After touching Loki, she found that she had caught only an illusion. Realizing that she had been deceived, she turned around suddenly and resisted Rhea's fist. Rhea, who had lived on Earth for many days, had completely adapted to the Earth's atmospheric environment. Kryptonian physique gave her super strength and super speed as powerful as Kara. With a bang, Rhea's lightning-fast punch knocked Diana from the air to the ground. Damn it, Diana, who was lying on the ground with a dusty face, cursed inwardly, grabbed the Vulcan sword that fell on the ground with her backhand, swung forward to block Rhea's attack, and repelled it. After standing up, she crushed the ground with her feet and moved in front of Loki in an instant. Bang! Loki barely used magic to resist a few times, but was hit hard by Diana and flew away. Then, using her skilled close combat skills, Diana flew into the air and fought with Rhea in close combat. Rhea faced the attack of the Vulcan sword and shot out heat vision from her eyes at the opponent. The heat vision that burned the air was blocked by Diana using the Vulcan sword. Holding the Vulcan sword with both hands, Diana roared and flew close to Rhea against the heat vision, and swung a sword fiercely, slashing at the opponent. Rhea subconsciously stretched out her arms to block. With a bang, Rhea was chopped off by Diana's sword in an angry state, and fell heavily to the ground. Although her hands were not directly cut off, her arms were completely out of control at this time. After knocking Rhea away, Diana fell to the ground and walked towards the other party. Bang! The next second, the air made a harsh explosion. In Diana's astonished eyes, she saw a figure falling from the air. The sonic impact of the person coming made the ground shake slightly. Under Azu's feet, the ground had a crack extending for hundreds of meters. After Azu landed in an inward 8 posture, he slowly stood up in the eyes of everyone. Before Diana could make any move, Azu's thermal vision shot at the other party without warning. Diana, who didn't have time to react, was hit by Azu's thermal vision. Bang! The thermal vision hit her body and directly hid her into a ruined building. You should reflect on yourself, Wonder Woman. After repelling Diana, Zu exhaled and said to her, "You are not a good person in every world." Last time in the world of injustice, Clark ended up in that situation, which was definitely related to this woman's instigation behind the scenes. If it weren't for the fact that the other party was his father's woman, he would never be polite to this woman. With Zu's arrival, Clark, Lois, and the rebels also joined the battlefield one after another. Clark helped Thomas and Bruce and his son to quickly subdue Aquaman. After experiencing various major events, Clark's strength has improved greatly. Although he still can't fly without the help of props, it's no problem to deal with Aquaman. Bang! A punch hit Aquaman's cheek, and Clark hit Aquaman staggering to the ground. The trident in Aquaman's hand also fell to the ground. Bruce took the opportunity to release the hook gun rope and entangled the opponent's arm. Bang! Aquaman, who tried to struggle, was hit hard by Clark again. Enough. Arthur, Clark, who had dealt with Aquaman in the small-town Fishman incident, frowned and said to him, "Now, war has no meaning. You will only destroy the world." Destroy the world? That's just destroying the world of you humans. Aquaman wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked at Clark coldly. "And you can't stop it. I activated the Doomsday device when I attacked. I want to make Britain sink completely underground." Clark was stunned when he heard Aquaman's words. He looked at Aquaman with unbelievable and shocked eyes. Is this still the Aquaman he knows? Are you crazy? This world has already gone crazy, Arthur said with a distorted face. You humans will, puff. Before he finished speaking, a long sword pierced his chest. Aquaman lowered his head and looked at the tip of the long sword in shock. Clark and Bruce were also stunned by this scene. Old Thomas, whose uniform was stained with a lot of blood, held the Amazon weapon in both hands and pierced Aquaman's chest. Next time I'll give you a piece of advice, from a doctor. If you anger the human standing in front of you, you will definitely end up in a bad way. Tisk. As old Thomas drew his weapon, Aquaman, with a look of disbelief on his face, fell to the ground with his eyes open. Wonder Woman was defeated by Azu, Loki, and Rhea, and Aquaman died. The entire battlefield was gradually controlled by the rebels. Cyborg flew to Thomas, his face not relaxed at all. He glanced at the body of Aquaman on the ground. He didn't bother to ask how the other party died. He said to Thomas and others, "I have received hundreds of earthquake data. No matter what the Atlanteans used to sink Britain, they have already started. Damn it. They are going to split the planet in half." Boom. As Cyborg spoke, the roar of huge waves came from afar, and the ground shook violently. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 540 Run, Barry, Run. Peter's supervision also saw that tsunami roaring in the distance. The ground was shaking violently due to the earthquake. Barry, who was standing next to Peter, suddenly had a severe headache. My memory, he groaned in pain, covering his forehead. The memories of his time with his mother in the original world gradually became blurred. The scenes of his time with his mother in this world began to emerge strongly, replacing the memories of the past. I am forgetting the memory of my coming here, I must. Barry covered his forehead in pain, almost unable to speak. You must leave here, leave before your memory is lost. Peter frowned slightly and said, you can save those who are dying, Barry. You can save millions of people who have already died. You can keep your promise. Looking at that tsunami roaring in the distance, Peter said to him seriously, as long as you run into the Speed Force again, you can change the original world line and get everything back on track. I can't just leave this place alone. Barry struggled and said, Sir, I don't know if I can do it. Of course you can, Barry, because you are the Flash. I believe you can do it. Peter stretched out his hand and pushed Barry forward. Run, Barry. Run. Pushed by Peter, Barry staggered forward a few steps. He looked at Peter deeply, and seeing the encouragement in his eyes, Barry suddenly became confident. He adjusted his steps and gradually made his steps normal. His arms swung faster and faster, and Barry's figure almost turned into a red lightning. Everything in front of him gradually became blurred in his eyes. His eyes gradually became firm. He kept swinging his arms, and his body turned into a residual image. Entering the passage of time, the images in the long river of time played out in front of him. He saw himself as a child, lying on the bed listening to his mother telling fairy tales of the 1001 Nights. He saw himself playing in the back garden, accidentally fell, and was comforted by his mother with tears on his face. After seeing that he had obtained the ideal results, his mother happily made cookies for him, and he was almost burned because he was too anxious. Closing his eyes, Barry did not let the tears fall, and whispered in a low voice, Mom. But just as he was running, he suddenly lost his balance. With a bang, Barry, who was caught off guard, was directly sucked into the turbulence of time. The scene in front of him suddenly changed. He was pulled into the turbulence of time and appeared in a strange place the next second. He stopped and saw the familiar house, and was stunned. This is my home. Barry didn't understand why he came here. Barry, perhaps sensing Barry's presence, the mother, who was cooking in an apron, pushed open the door and saw him. Mom. The mother looked at Barry's tattered Flash uniform, then at the blood on his face, and walked over distressed. Why are you dressed like this? What are you doing here? The mother grabbed Barry's hand and walked into the house. Come in quickly. The news said that the end of the world is coming, and it must be not peaceful outside. Yes, Mom. Barry took off his mask, entered the room, and revealed his scarred face. And everything is because of me. Barry told his mother the whole story. Sorry, Mom, I made things worse. Barry's mother listened to her son's narration and reached out her hand to touch Barry's face distressedly. No, Barry, I should thank you. You helped Mom make up for her regrets and allowed me to be here with you and have a different life. Barry listened to his mother's words and gently held her hand. I must have a way to save everyone, including you, Mom. No, Barry, you must go back to the past to stop yourself. The mother held Barry's hand tightly. Mr. Patrick is right, the past is not painful, it is the past that has shaped who we are now. You have to correct the past. I don't know if I can do it, if I can go back to the past accurately. Of course you can, the mother said to him. Barry, as soon as you broke the boundary of time, you were pulled to me, like a lightning rod. If you focus on being yourself, you will be pulled to the right time. Barry listened to his mother's words, lowered his eyes, too sad to look his mother in the face. But, Mom, if I had stopped myself and saved them, but not you, there must have been another way. The mother shook her head. Think about it, Barry, how many people died because of this? Millions, Mom, but I won't let you die. I won't erase this life, no, I won't. The mother smiled slightly, but tears flowed down her face. She reached out and stroked her son's scarred face. This did happen. No matter what, Barry, the days we lived together existed, and I am happy and extremely proud to have a son like you. Gently burying her head in Barry's arms, the mother whispered to him with tears in her eyes, You have to let me go, Barry. I don't want to do that. I don't want to either, but I will be happy to keep your father company. It's time to let go, Barry. Raising his head and looking at his mother's face, Barry took a painful step back. He knew he had to make a decision now. This was a dream, a real dream, but the dream was about to end. "I'll be fine, go ahead, Barry, run," his mother forced a smile on her face and said to him. "Mom, I love you." Turning around, Barry swung his arms and ran into the time gap again. He ran into the long river of time in the past and returned to the day when his mother died. He also saw himself who tried to stop Reverse Flash from killing his mother. No. Stop. Just when the other self wanted to stop Reverse Flash, he rushed over and knocked down the self who wanted to rewrite history. Time overlapped at this moment, and the white light squeezed by the two time and space instantly swallowed Barry. On the other side, old Thomas, who killed Aquaman, staggered and fell to the ground at the moment of the earthquake. Bruce quickly supported his father with his eyes and hands. He realized that Thomas' abdomen was soaked with blood. "Dad," shocked, Bruce wanted to treat Thomas. "No, it's too late, Bruce." Thomas, who was held by Bruce, tremblingly took out a letter from his uniform. "I'm sorry, son. We spent too little time together. I have a lot to say to you, but the time is too short, and I can't say them anymore." All these words are written in the letter. "No, Dad, you won't leave like this. We haven't even had dinner together yet, you, me, and Mother." Bruce hugged his father in pain. All the good things were so easy to get, but they were about to be destroyed in an instant. "Don't be sad, Bruce. There will be a better world to replace it. There won't be so much pain. There won't be so much heaviness. You will go back to the right time." Old Thomas smiled. "I used to blame the world for my son's tragic death, Bruce. Don't let hatred blind your eyes. Don't be like me. Kill Jozil for revenge, and then go to another extreme. You still have people who love you, Patrick, Alfred. You will have true love, family and friends. You will have a better life. Your mother and I are happy for you even in another world." "No, Dad." Bruce's tears burst out instantly. On the other side of the battlefield, Peter came to Raven and the others. Wonder Woman had been defeated by Zu, Rhea and Kara. Half kneeling on the ground, she covered her injured chest and looked at Peter with anger. Since the tsunami and earthquake had already hit, Peter was ready to take his family, Bruce, and members of the Resistance such as Cyborg, Lois Lane, and Elemental Girl back to the farm. Even if Barry did not run out of the timeline and change the ending, returning to the farm would still be able to avoid the upcoming disaster. Raven used magic to open the portal and prepared to teleport everyone back. Peter hesitated for a moment and asked everyone to go back first, and he would be there later. "No, Dad, let's go back together." Raven saw that Peter was not leaving, so she wanted to stay with him, "or I'll be with you." Mark also stood up, "And me, Dad, a mere earthquake and tsunami can't hurt me." Peter touched their heads and asked Zu and Clark to take them back. After the two reluctant people left, Peter looked at Diana, who was still at the scene. Diana snorted coldly. "What? Do you want to ridicule me?" "Peter, laugh at my failure. I won't be so boring. I just want to tell you that Barry has returned to the past and changed what has happened. Those who died can be resurrected again." Hearing Peter's words, Diana, who was already desperate, suddenly had light in her eyes. Ignoring that tsunami, she asked Peter, "In other words, those scenes you showed me, our life together on the farm, will become real, not a dream, but another world line, time. It's a wonderful thing." Diana smiled with relief, and then took off the golden crown on her head. "Give this to the other me. Don't follow in my footsteps. Tell her never to let anger drown reason and emotion." Peter took the golden crown from the other's hand. Boom, the earthquake collapsed, and half of the city collapsed in the rumble. "I hope we won't be enemies next time we meet." "Go away, Peter." Diana turned around and faced the raging flood. Chapter 541. Tom, "Father, will I also have love?" Peter was about to say something when he suddenly felt an obscure breath coming from the world in front of him. In his discomfort, the world in front of him began to change. After the dark unconscious flash, he found himself back at the farm, sitting on the sofa watching TV. Surrounded by familiar furniture, Chloe, Lana and others were sitting next to him, looking at him in shock. Raven stood behind, also with a confused expression. As soon as she brought everyone into the farm, she felt a black screen in front of her eyes. When her vision recovered, she found that the members of the Resistance she brought, Cyborg, Elemental Girl, and Demon Etrigan had all disappeared. Only the original family was left in the room. Did Barbary succeed? "Dad," Raven asked Peter in confusion. Peter looked at the golden crown in his hand and nodded. He stood up and looked outside, and the world returned to its original appearance. In the photo frame hanging in the living room of the Kent family's farm, there was a smiling photo of Clark and his parents. In the distance, Chloe's family was laughing and talking, and there was no longer the atmosphere of grief for parents who lost their children. Yes, he succeeded, and we are back to the original world line, Peter turned around and said to Rhea, Bruce, Raven and others in the room. That means we don't have to face the destruction of the world. Louise walked quickly to the TV, turned on the TV and searched all the news channels. After not finding any news about the Atlanteans and the Amazons, she breathed a sigh of relief. Great. We are finally back. Louise came up and hugged Peter excitedly. Bruce, who was standing at the back of the living room, held a letter in his hand. The letter his father gave him was still in his hand. Those memories that would have dissipated with a correction of the world line did not disappear. He still remembered every minute and every second he spent with his father. Was it the world tree in the courtyard that protected his memory? Or was it like the Godfather said, love is the most powerful magic in the world, and it can even cross dimensions, so this memory will be remembered by himself? Shaking his head, he put the letter away. This may be a dream, but this is the best dream he has ever had in his life. Midtown. In the police station office, Barry was awakened by a familiar voice. He raised his head and saw Forrest shaking him. Wake up, Barry. Forrest? It's you? Of course it's me. Are you confused? Forrest said to him, I know we have spent 18 hours on these unsolved cases, but Director Singer won't care about these. Director Singer. Barry felt a little confused in his mind. The scene in front of him seemed to have happened before. Did he return to the original world line? Are you okay, Barry? Forrest asked him with concern. Yes, I'm fine. Did the Amazon and the Atlanteans go to war? Barry asked him tentatively. Amazon? War? Forrest looked at him puzzledly. Did you have a strange dream? I haven't heard of any Amazon and Atlanteans going to war. Barry stood up and breathed a sigh of relief after hearing Forrest's words. That's good. Everything is back on track. He gently pressed his forehead with his hand. In the other timeline, his memory was disappearing every minute, but now, in the other timeline, the memory of his mother and himself is still there. He still remembers his 13th birthday party, when his mother baked a cake in the shape of a sports car for him. He remembers the experience of taking the driving test with his mother when he was 16. He still remembers every minute and every second of his time with his mother in that timeline. Is it a temporary side effect caused by the time fragments in the blood? Barry pinched his chin and fell into deep thought. Maybe he should go to the Padrick farm, ask Mr. Padrick, and thank him by the way. Thinking of this, Barry immediately picked up his coat and walked out quickly. Where are you going, Barry? Forrest shouted at him from behind. To see a very important person. Tell Director Singer that I'm on leave today. Night. Everything returned to normal on the farm. After dinner, Peter was about to go upstairs to rest, but was stopped by Tom. Dad, can we talk? Tom said hesitantly. Of course. Peter nodded and asked Tom to go back to his room with him. After experiencing the experience of another world line, Tom's heart was shocked. He was originally indifferent to emotions, but because of the stories between Bruce and his father, and Barry and his mother, he had some different feelings in his heart. Dad, can you tell me what love is? Love? Peter was slightly stunned after hearing Tom's words. After organizing his words, Peter slowly said, it is a very complicated thing. I think it is more like a sacrifice of each other, not a one-sided sacrifice, like Bruce and his father. Although it cannot be touched, it should be the most powerful force in the world. It is indeed complicated, Dad. Tom looked at the farmland covered with the moonlight outside the window. At first, I didn't understand the purpose of their actions, because many times, their reckless and ineffective actions would not gain any benefits, and might even put themselves in danger. But now, Dad, I understand. Tom spoke his heart to Peter. I understand the relationship between Bruce and his father, why they both became Batman, and why Harry Potter was able to kill the other me. Peter listened to Tom's words, reached out and touched his hair, and said, that's because you also have love in your heart. Do I have it too? Tom asked uncertainly. Of course, people without love will never understand, just like Voldemort will never understand why he was killed by Harry. As he spoke, Peter fell into deep thought. Dumbledore once mentioned that Tom's birth was due to a love potion, so there was no such thing as love in his soul. But now, Tom's soul seems to have been injected with something that it should not have. Tom nodded hesitantly. He felt that maybe his father was right, his soul was indeed injected with some substances. Facing his father, this feeling was even stronger. Actually, Tom paused, raised his head and said to Peter, "Dad, there is something I have been hiding from you." "What?" "I have investigated in another timeline before, and Clark did not fail to arrive on Earth." Tom told the information he had investigated. A spaceship once landed on Earth, but not in Smallville, but in Metropolis. The military found Clark and then used him as a test subject for research. He has been living in the laboratory as a test subject. I wanted to tell you, but everything happened too fast, and you quickly rushed to Europe. "Yeah, I know." Peter said that he knew about it. If Clark saw another miserable self, maybe he would have other ideas, so I didn't tell anyone. I just rescued him from the military base. "Clark doesn't know?" Tom asked in surprise. "He doesn't know. Everything is over, Tom. Let this be a secret between us." Peter patted his shoulder and said. Tom nodded, and after a while he continued to ask Peter, "But did they just disappear? Did the traces of that world that once existed just disappear?" "No, they didn't disappear. We all remember them, didn't we?" Peter paused and looked outside. "Although it's a dream, as long as everyone has the same dream, just like the dream of 1,000 cats, maybe this world will exist because of these people's dreams. The dream of 1,000 cats may really be able to shape a world. But for Peter now, he can't use this consciousness and dream to create a world. All he can do is send these dreams of another world line that once happened to those people." Late at night, countless people fell asleep and had the same dream. Diana in Boston went to bed after washing up. She dreamed that she became the object of an alliance with the Atlanteans, followed by a bloody wedding, and finally she met Peter. The story of another Diana was played out in her dream. Not only her, but all the other superheroes in this world, Aquaman, Green Lantern, Cyborg, Shazam and his brothers and sisters, Elemental Girl, Demon Trigon, McBee, Hawkgirl, etc., all had the same dream. Their life experiences in another world line. The next day, early in the morning, Diana got up with a groggy head. Because the dream last night was too realistic, she was still a little dazed. "Will I use Britain as a base for the Amazons? And fight with Peter?" Shaking her head, Diana threw the absurd dream out of her mind. Impossible. She was thinking about whether to call Peter to ask, and suddenly received a call to collect the package. Package? What will Peter send? Taking the package sent by Peter from the courier company, opening the package, and looking at the golden crown inside, Diana was stunned. That? Wasn't it a dream? At the same time, the world in another timeline that was supposed to disappear still exists at this time. Because of the war between the Amazons and the Atlanteans, the collapsed Europe was recreated by a pair of blue hands. A blue-skinned, almost naked man appeared in this world. He released a powerful force that even Peter was terrified of, and the blue-skinned man maintained the existence of this world. Chapter 542 The Clockwork Monkey. Dad, Christmas vacation is coming soon. Can I invite people from Hogwarts to visit? After breakfast, Mark suddenly asked Peter about the Christmas arrangements. Who do you want to invite? Peter was originally on his way to Gotham. After the Flashpoint world happened, Bruce returned to Gotham and Jonathan was taken to Gotham for treatment. He planned to go to Gotham to see Jonathan's situation and talk to Bruce. After the Flashpoint world line was corrected, Bruce lost his parents again. Even though it was originally a dream, more people like dreams than a life full of pain. Although they know it is false, they still can't help but indulge in it. Just as he was about to leave, Mark suddenly asked, "Can you invite people from Hogwarts to visit?" Of course, Peter came over and said to him, "If your friends are willing to come, the school bus given by the system can freely shuttle back and forth between the two worlds, and it is not impossible to pick up people from Hogwarts." "Do you want to invite Harry?" Peter asked Mark. Due to the brutal style of Harry's aunt's family, Harry rarely went home during the holidays. He remembered that she either spent the Christmas holidays at school or went back to the Wheel-Eyes house. No, Mark's answer was beyond Peter's expectations. He said a little embarrassedly, "It's Ginny, Ginny." Peter was slightly stunned when he heard Mark say Ginny's name. Did this kid really steal Harry's wife? If Mark steals Harry's wife, who will Harry marry in the future? Will his son and Ginny, two people from different worlds, have a result? Coughing, Peter quickly threw these irrelevant thoughts out of his mind. He hasn't married yet, but he is worried about the marriage of his naughty child. Turning his attention to Mark in front of him, Peter asked him suspiciously, Are you on good terms? Yes, we are very good friends, Dad. We have known each other since the Sorting Hat sorted the houses. Mark did not understand the meaning of Peter's words. He said to Peter, Ginny is very curious about what our world is like, and she is very interested in your adventure stories, Dad. She wants to come and see, Dad. You promised her that you would bring her to this world, right? Yes, Dad. Is it not possible? Mark asked nervously. He was a little afraid that his father would not agree. Will the Wheel Eyes agree? Peter rubbed Mark's hair. She is a little girl. Her parents will not agree to her being too far away from home, and this is the distance between two worlds. Hearing Peter's words, Mark immediately became depressed. Dad was right. If Ginny's parents knew, they would definitely not agree to her coming. Looking at Mark's expression, Peter knew that the other party definitely did not ask the Wheel Eyes for their opinions. This is not a simple matter, so Ginny can't make the decision by herself. You can ask her parents for their opinions. After saying a few words to Mark, Peter walked out of the farm and prepared to go to Gotham. At Hogwarts, Raven and the other three returned to school after experiencing the Flashpoint incident. Getting off the school bus, Raven and Mark talked as they walked to the classroom. Dad said that if we switch time, then the world will no longer exist, Mark said with some sadness. It's like a dream. When you wake up from the dream, you still feel lost. Raven hugged the book and frowned slightly. That world is a collapsed world. Millions of people have died. In order to make those dead wake up again, we have to do that. I know, Mark said dejectedly. Dad said that in that war-torn era, no matter you are a good person or a villain, as long as you contribute to the resistance cause, you are a hero. The heroes there seem to be very different from what we know. I heard Clark say that the previous Aquaman cherished life, was kind and friendly, but there, he became a fierce and cruel tyrant, and Wonder Woman, who was generous and cheerful and often took care of us, turned into a woman who killed people without blinking an eye. People always change. The environment or some small things can change a person. Raven said to him, maybe you in another parallel world are a villain, just like Azu in the parallel world is a villain. Dad said that Azu in the parallel world does whatever he wants, and he always mentions Hongwen and Loki. Raven glanced at Loki in front of her. Loki in the Marvel world is an ambitious man, and he calls himself a god, although he was later killed by Thanos. After listening to Raven's words, Mark was slightly stunned, then shook his head and said, no, I won't be such a bad person. What if it happens? Raven stopped, looked into his eyes and asked, will you kill the other self? If he is a villain, Mark was immediately in hesitation. I don't know. Staring at Mark for a while, Raven turned and left, and said to Mark, let me tell you in advance, Mark, if you are a villain in the parallel world and want to hurt Dad, I will kill him. If you stop me, I will not hold back on you, Mark. The look in his sister's eyes just now seemed not to be a joke. Raven and the others were talking, and when they walked into the corridor, they ran into Harry. Standing opposite Harry was the tall Lucius Malfoy. Don't you want to know how Ginny got the diary, Mr. Malfoy? Harry asked Malfoy. Lucius Malfoy's eyes became a little solemn. Why should I know how that stupid little girl got the diary? Lucius Malfoy replied in a cold tone. Because you gave her the diary. Harry looked into the other's eyes. When we were outside Gringotts, you secretly stuffed the diary into her cauldron. You did it, Mr. Malfoy? Malfoy clenched his fists and stared at Harry with an unfriendly look, but soon loosened them. Do you have any evidence, Mr. Potter? Lucius asked him hoarsely. No, no one can provide evidence now. Harry was about to speak when Mark, who heard the conversation between the two, came over. Standing next to Harry, Mark said to the other party with a serious expression, now Riddle has disappeared from the diary. In addition, Mr. Malfoy, don't distribute that kind of thing anymore. I heard from Headmaster Dumbledore that these things have always been regarded as contraband by the Ministry of Magic. If these things fall into the hands of innocent people, I think Ron's father will definitely be able to find out that it came from you. Lucius Malfoy saw Mark coming over and his face twitched slightly. He seemed to want to say something, but he finally restrained himself and turned to his house elf and said, let's go, Dobby. Then he turned and left and walked outside. When passing by Tom, Lucius glanced at him. The house elf hurriedly followed Lucius's steps. Lucius, who was in a bad mood, kicked the house elf out. Everyone could hear Dobby's painful screams coming along the corridor. Thank you, Mark. Seeing Mark rescue him, Harry thanked him. Mark. You're welcome, Harry. Didn't you say that the house elf always wanted to follow you? Harry didn't know why Mark mentioned Dobby, but nodded. Yes, but it is Mr. Malfoy's house elf, and there is a magical contract between them. Mark shook his head. I don't want someone who abuses house elves to have such a loyal butler. Mark's eyes turned and he suddenly had an idea. Harry, I'll tell you how to get Dobby. Mark helped Harry come up with an idea and whispered something. Tom, can I borrow that diary? The diary had always been in Tom's hands, so Mark needed to borrow it from Tom. Tom didn't know what Mark was up to, but he agreed. Okay. A few minutes later, Harry ran towards Malfoy, holding the diary that Mark had borrowed from Tom. He heard Dobby's screams of pain as he turned the corner and got farther and farther away from him. While wondering if Mark's plan would work, Harry quickly took off one of his shoes, pulled off his smelly socks, and stuffed the diary in. Then, he ran towards Malfoy along the corridor. Just as the two men were walking down the stairs, Harry ran all the way to catch up with him. Mr. Malfoy, wait, Harry panted and stopped. I have something very important to give you. As he said that, he stuffed the smelly sock into Lucius Malfoy's hand. What? Malfoy was stunned for a moment, and after reacting, he tore off his socks and threw them into the hands of the house elf Dobby. He glanced at the diary angrily, and then looked at Harry. Harry Potter, one day, you will suffer the same fate as your parents, he said to Harry angrily. They were nosy fools back then. Come on, Dobby, come here, Harry immediately said to Dobby next to him. Mr. Malfoy has set you free. According to the rules of the wizarding world, if a house elf receives any item from the master, especially clothes, it will be considered as being fired. Lucius Malfoy threw the socks to Dobby, freeing Dobby. Hearing Harry's words, Lucius was immediately stunned. Then he looked at Harry angrily. You made me lose my servant. He took out his wand and wanted to attack Harry, but was instantly knocked away by the magic released by Dobby. You, don't hurt Dobby's master. Malfoy fell to the ground. When Harry came over happily to return the diary to Tom, Tom was in a worse mood when he smelled the stench on it. He really hated this guy who was at odds with him. At night, Padraic Farm. After Peter saw all the children fall asleep, he turned off the lights and went into his room to rest. Crack! Crack! Just as he fell asleep, he suddenly heard a sound like a clockwork. Looking back, Peter was surprised to find a clockwork little monkey on the ground. Chapter 543. My name is Bayo Bayo. Bayo means explosion. What is this? Peter bent down and picked up the clockwork monkey on the ground. The monkey looked a little ferocious, and it was hitting cymbals in its hands, making crisp sounds. Is it a cymbal monkey toy? Peter picked up the monkey from the ground and looked at it carefully. He remembered that this kind of cymbal monkey toy was made by a Japanese children's toy company in the 1950s and 1970s. Later, it gradually spread in the Western world. Why did the monkey toy in front of him look familiar? Hello. Excuse me, where's this? A crisp and timid voice suddenly came from the shadows. Peter looked up and found that behind a Chinese screen in the room, which Peter bought from the Metropolitan Antique Shop, there was a little girl of 4 or 5 years old with blue braids. The little girl had a few freckles on her face, and she poked her head out and looked at him cautiously. Peter looked at the girl's familiar face and was stunned. Is this the little girl he imagined? This is my dream. You entered my dream. Peter pulled his thoughts back and handed the little monkey in his hand to her. Don't be afraid, I won't hurt you. Dream? But, shouldn't dreams be colorful? And in dreams, I can fly. The little girl put one hand behind the screen. Although she wanted to come over and get her little monkey, she hid behind it because of fear and asked him in a low voice. You're right, we can all fly in dreams, Peter said and gently let go of the hand holding the little monkey. Something shocked the little girl happened. The little monkey that Peter let go of did not fall to the ground, but slowly flew towards her. The girl, who was both curious and scared, grabbed the little monkey flying towards her, stuffed it tightly in her arms, and looked at him anxiously. Now you believe it's a dream, right? Peter patiently stretched out his hand to her. Since it's a dream, it means that if I'm a bad guy, I can't hurt you, right? The bad guys in dreams are destined to be defeated by the protagonist. The little girl nodded and whispered, yes, my mother said that there will be a tooth fairy to protect me and my sister in the dream. She mustered up her courage and took a step forward, then quickly stretched her foot back. Sir, are you the tooth fairy? No, I'm not the tooth fairy, but sometimes, I do protect some people's dreams, Peter said to the timid little girl. My name is Peter Patrick, what about you? As a rule of exchange, I told you my name, And now you should tell me your name." The girl nervously twisted the corner of her clothes with her fingers. "My name is Boom, Boom." Hearing this name, Peter was instantly shocked. It was indeed her. Jinx. Peter looked at the little monkey in her hand. Boom, the little father warrior, used this monkey to send his adoptive father and 2 little friends to heaven? Boom, Jinx, a character in the world of League of Legends, experienced the tragic accident of his parents dying in the Twin Cities War in his childhood, and was adopted by Vandal with his sister V. After Vandal led the people of Boreal to attack Piltover and failed, Jinx lived with V in Vandal's tavern, often tinkering with some small inventions, but also caused a lot of trouble. After that, Boom grew up to be Jinx, and her personality became more and more crazy. She is good at making powerful weapons and is famous for explosions and destructive acts. She is a key factor in the conflict between Piltover and Zoan. Her crazy behavior has made the Twin Cities full of crises and intensified chaos. Could it be that the father-worried person this time is Boom? Peter looked at Boom, who was rubbing the corner of his clothes with his head down, with a surprised look. If it is really Boom, compared to Tom, this person is the real father-worried person. He remembered that when Vandal was captured, V and her friends went to save their adopted father, leaving Boom alone at home. Boom is very satisfied with her bomb work, and she thinks she can help everyone. So she sneaked out of the castle alone and threw a bomb at the enemy. It was this little monkey bomb that injured 800 enemies and 1,000 of its own. Not a single enemy was killed, and the adoptive father and 2 other friends were sent to the sky. The child was still young, and was just playing around. Bomb, who had completed the title of Father Warrior when he was a child, became Jinx when he grew up, and accidentally killed another adoptive father, Hilco, in a state of emotional disorder. If Star-Lord and Tom were Father Warriors, Bomb should be the Super Father Warrior. Because 2 adoptive fathers died because of her, Bomb was called Esports Lubu. I, Bomb, have been wandering for half my life, and I only regret that I have not met a wise master. If you don't abandon me, I am willing to be your adoptive father. I have become Dongzhou. However, Peter sighed slightly. The death of the 2 adoptive fathers cannot be simply attributed to Bomb. Bomb has some mental problems. After losing her parents, what she feared most was being abandoned by her family, even in the most dangerous times. She had suffered a mental breakdown more than once because of this kind of thing, and fell into an abnormal state. From the perspective of Bomb, children who have lost their parents often lack a sense of security and may even be very dependent on emotional sustenance. This dependence may even become the meaning of their survival. Even if they are in danger, she will not live alone if her family does not take her with them. She values this very much, even more than her life. However, tragically, this dependence often leads to mental illness. Just like the difference between depressive mood and depression, depression can be solved after the root cause is found, but depression has already taken root in the spiritual world. Even if Bomb finally understands her sister's difficulties, the world is already a wasteland for her. The mistake has been made, the resentment has been formed, the beautiful things have been destroyed, and everything is too late. Looking up, Peter thought about all kinds of things in his mind and looked at the uneasy and scared Bomb. Since the next upcoming father worry has been roughly determined, Peter took a deep breath and accepted it all. Anyway, Bomb's personality has not been fully developed yet. In the future, we just need to strengthen parent-child interaction and accompany him more, and by the way, prevent him from playing with bombs. This way, he will not accidentally bomb others. Think about it, except for Mark, everyone in the farm is not an ordinary person. Even if Bomb gets into trouble, it shouldn't be a big problem. Except for Mark, it's not easy for her to blow someone up. In addition, the environment can also change a person's personality. It's hard to say that Bomb's tragedy has nothing to do with the conflict between the 2 cities. The direct cause of Bomb's madness was an accident caused by herself. The huge sadness and guilt came like a flood, making her unable to save herself. The guilt has been entangled with her, and eventually she suffered from schizophrenia. But in the final analysis, this is inextricably linked to the class contradictions in the 2 cities. Bomb's parents were killed by law enforcement officers, which caused her mental instability. And the reason why she went to help was because she wanted to save her friends and prove her worth. In Zoan, where strength is the top priority, she could not use her scientific research talent and shooting talent. However, in Piltover, if she had the opportunity to go to school, her talent would be recognized, and she would not need to prove herself through fighting. Baum's personality was shaped by the environment of Zone, and the environment of Zone is the product of the contradiction between the upper and lower cities. Therefore, the fundamental reason is actually the same. In such an environment, people like Jinx are destined to be born. Many complicated thoughts flashed through his mind. Peter exhaled and stretched out his hand to Boom. Now, do you believe it? Boom. Yes. Boom had a fierce ideological struggle in his heart, and finally took a brave step and left from behind the screen. She felt that Peter in front of her gave her a very kind feeling. Boom mustered up her courage, walked in front of Peter, and looked at him timidly. Sir, where's this? My home. Peter smiled at her. If you like, you can always come here in the future. Boom stood on his heels and poked his head out to take a look at the courtyard outside. Sir, is your home this big in the dream? Boom looked at the world tree in the courtyard and made a wow sound. Yes, my house is big, but this is only part of it. Peter pointed to the world tree in the courtyard and said to her, I can take you to see a bigger world. Then he activated the magic of the sandbag, and in the incredible eyes of Baum, the scene in front of him suddenly changed from a farm to the scene of Asgard inside the world tree. Standing in front of the square hall, Baum looked at the magnificent Asgard palace in shock. Wow, the palace hall and buildings all showed an indescribable beauty, as if they were shining pearls. The wonderful and eternal waterfall poured down from a height, adding endless vitality to this land. Exquisite and magnificent scenery can be seen everywhere, whether it is lush forests or gorgeous flowers. The rainbow bridge in the distance is shining, and the gorgeous light illuminates the entire sky. As Baum, who has always lived in the lower level of Zone, has never seen such a beautiful building. My sister often told me how beautiful Piltover in the upper city is. The Piltover that my sister has seen must not be as beautiful as what I see now. Bao asked Peter with a shocked face. Sir, is this your home too? Yes, this is also part of my home. If you like, I can show you around. At this time, Peter, like a weird uncle who uses a lollipop to lure a little girl, stretched out his hand to her. Bao did not see Peter's hand. Her attention was attracted by the luxurious chair on the steps of the palace. One day, I will sit on that thing. At this time, Bao's heart has a strong interest in the beautiful and attractive chair. Although she didn't know what it meant. Bao, hearing Peter's voice. Bao immediately ran over. Because she was afraid of the unfamiliar environment around her, she subconsciously held Peter's hand. Chapter 544 The seventh father of sorrow has arrived. Why is it a little different? Peter didn't know that at this time, Boom was interested in the throne of King Odin in the main hall. Holding Boom's hand, he led him to walk in Asgard. Following Peter to visit the magnificent palace, Boom's mouth never closed. Wow, the bridge is so beautiful, just like a rainbow. Boom stood on the rainbow bridge and gently stepped on the bridge surface with his heel. It's a pity that I can't eat it. If I had a rainbow candy this long and this big, I would definitely eat it for a long time. Boom tilted his head and for some reason remembered the rainbow candy his mother had bought for him. Both were so colorful. I have to share it with my sister, my father and my mother. Boom began to worry about how to share the rainbow candy. Do you like rainbow candy very much? Peter squatted down and touched Boom's hair and asked. Yes, I like to eat rainbow candies. They taste sour and sweet. If you look at them in the sun, they will emit several colors like a rainbow. Bao then became a little depressed. But my mother said we don't have money to buy too much, and eating too much is bad for our teeth. Then I must try it when I have the chance, Peter said to her. But, although I don't have rainbow candies here, I have other candies. While talking, Peter observed the dreams of the people around Smallville. Bao, wait here for a while. Hearing that Peter was about to leave, Bao immediately grabbed the corner of Peter's clothes and shook her head in fear. I'm scared, sir, don't leave me, it's just a few minutes. I'll be back soon. Bao lowered her head with tears in her eyes, but she refused to let go of the corner of Peter's clothes. There was no choice. Peter had to pick her up, fly into the air, and enter other people's dreams. Being picked up by Peter and experiencing the feeling of flying in the air immediately made Bao forget the fact that she was almost abandoned just now. With eyes wide open, she forgot to be afraid as she felt the wind rushing past her ears. She used to be afraid of heights. But now she didn't close her eyes like before. Holding Peter's neck, Bao was filled with excitement. I'm flying. I'm a flying bird, Bao shouted loudly in the air. Looking at the girl who released her joyful emotions, Peter was also infected by her and smiled. With Bao, He traveled into the dream of a boy from Smallville Elementary School. Peter snatched the super-large lollipop in the elementary school student's dream and handed it to Bao Bao. The elementary school student, Bao Bao, who was eating the super-large lollipop the whole time, played in Asgard all night. Until she woke up, she hadn't finished eating the lollipop in her dream. The moment Bao Bao disappeared, Peter realized that the other party had woken up in the real world. Waking himself up from his sleep, Peter got up and looked at the night outside. The night had not completely dissipated. Looking down at the time, it was 5:25 in the morning, and a new day was about to begin. Taking a deep breath, he looked down at the watch on his wrist. The time hand was about to reach the end, and it was estimated that the seventh Father Sorrower was about to come. Just like last time, as the day of the Father Sorrower approached, the other party's soul could often cross time and space and connect with his dreams. Just like Tom last time. I just hope there will be no accidents this time. He cast his eyes to the night outside the window, and his face became serious. The next day, early in the morning, Peter watched the weather forecast on TV and found that there was no news about meteor showers recently. Instead, due to the attack of cold air, heavy rain will come in 3 or 2 days. It's not a meteor shower, but a heavy rain. Stroking the beard on his chin, Peter fell into deep thought. At breakfast, Mark told everyone about the miserable situation of Lucius Malfoy. Mr. Malfoy was thrown out. He fell on the stairs and kept falling down. Finally, he stopped on a pile of crowded goods on the staircase. Then his face was bruised and purple. He stood up and tried to take out his wand to continue attacking Harry. Mark paused and said, then he was threatened by the house elf Dobby, don't attack Harry. However, Harry didn't let Dobby follow him in the end. He let Dobby go free. What is a house elf? Star-Lord listened to Mark's words and asked him in confusion. He has always been interested in this kind of pets. He once raised a raccoon with the same name as Rocket Raccoon in the Guardians of the Galaxy, but he let the other slip away without paying attention. Raven beside him explained to Star-Lord, they are a lowly race, and must serve their masters from generation to generation. They are all slaves of ancient and wealthy wizard families. They are responsible for all household chores and are bound by their masters. They cannot disobey their masters' orders at will. If they disobey, they must punish themselves. In addition, they also have magic, but they must be allowed by their masters to cast spells. The condition for gaining freedom is that the masters hand them a piece of clothing, but the traditional concept of house elves is that they are expelled from the house by their masters, which is a shame. Star-Lord put down the sausage in his hand and asked Peter, Dad, can we raise a house elf? Peter glanced at Star-Lord. This kid is still interested in raising animals. After organizing his words, Peter said to Star-Lord, we don't have the habit of raising slaves. We are not the evil plantation owners of the past. Azu next to him looked at Peter in confusion. When did his father become so correct? Peter coughed and said, the money you pay for a house elf is enough for you to hire 10 black people. Azu looked as if he had suddenly realized something. Dad still thinks black people are more cost-effective. Peter didn't know what Azu was thinking at this time, but he remembered Dobby, the house elf. He remembered that after Harry used the glove to regain his freedom, Dobby had been looking for jobs everywhere, but he was always rejected because he was a house elf and asked for wages. Later, with Dumbledore's permission, he worked in the Hogwarts kitchen with Winky, earning 1 galleon a week and 1 day off a month. In the final battle, Dobby was sent to Malfoy Manor by Aberforth to rescue Harry and his gang, but he was hit by Bellatrix Lestrange's dagger when he was apparating, and finally died next to Bill Weasley and Fleur Delacour's shell cottage. This loyal house elf can be hired to work on the farm. Peter put down the food in his hand and thought to himself. The next day, at night, Peter walked to the porch. Last night, Boom Boom entered his dream again. Compared to the somewhat restrained image of the previous night, last night's Bobo was much more lively and bold, and stayed with him in Asgard for a night. Peter was in a good mood. But soon his mood disappeared with a heavy rain. With a heavy rain that began in the evening, the whole farm was covered with heavy rain. The scene in the rainstorm was like a painting of natural carnival and raging. The rain poured down, and the sky seemed to be torn apart. Endless rain poured like a waterfall, shrouding the whole world in a hazy and chaotic state. The streets of the town of Smallville quickly turned into a turbulent river. The rain gathered into a stream, washing the road surface, rushing forward with mud and fallen leaves. Lightning and thunder, the sky lit up with dazzling lightning from time to time, followed by deafening thunder, as if nature was venting some emotions. Persephone stood by the window, looking at the heavy rain outside, frowning. She was now worried about whether the drainage system of the farm was damaged. If the drainage system was broken, the farm would be soaked. Peter, standing on the porch, looked down at the watch on his wrist and at the rain outside. The time hand on the watch has pointed to the end. He suspected that the seventh father troublemaker would come soon. Looking up, his sight penetrated the pouring rain outside and looked into the distance. Through the heavy rain, Peter's supervision has been searching nearby. I don't know how long this damn weather will last. Kara came over and complained to Peter. I suspect that when it continues, the town will encounter a flood. Seeing Peter cast a puzzled look at her, Kara explained, think about the ill-fated fate of this town. Wildfires, earthquakes, tornadoes, and all kinds of meteorite monsters. Now a flood will submerge the town. I don't think it's strange. Think about it. We just saved the world from the Flashpoint world. The next second, a flood will hit. It's really a waste of time. Thank you for your blessing to the town. Peter rubbed Kara all over his body, but I think the possibility of this flood destroying the world is not high. Peter just said his words, and suddenly a palpitation came, followed by a flash of lightning in the distance. Looking down at the watch on his wrist, time has come to an end. Holding up an umbrella, Peter quickly left the courtyard in the heavy rain. Kara, go back first, I'll be back later. Because Peter's action was too sudden, Kara had not finished speaking before Peter disappeared in front of her. The system prompted Peter that the father of sorrow had arrived, and he needed to find the other party as soon as possible. Entering the woods behind the backyard, the rain poured down, hitting the umbrella with dense popping sounds, as if every drop carried a force that could not be ignored. Peter held up an umbrella and kept looking for the figure of the child who was coming. Soon he heard a faint crying sound coming from a distance. Peter used his super hearing to quickly determine the direction from which the sound came. Activating super speed, he moved in front of a big tree, and saw a little girl hiding from the rain under the tree in the dark night. The girl was sitting under the tree trembling all over, crying with her head buried in her legs. After hearing the sound, she raised her head and looked at Peter with tears and rain on her face. Peter looked at the little girl's red hair when she raised her head, and was stunned in place. Chapter 545, The Farm Sewer Leads Directly to Zone? Red-haired, Peter was stunned when he saw the girl, who was about 4 or 5 years old, looking up. Isn't it Bakugo? The red-haired girl who looked up looked similar to Bakugo, with delicate features and some heroic spirit. Her short red hair was wet by the rain, and her wet bangs hung down, adding a touch of her fragility. After Peter was stunned for a moment, he walked to her on the muddy ground and held an umbrella for her. Hello, little girl. Peter lowered his head and looked at her, and asked her softly, are you lost? The red-haired girl, who was a little scared, saw Peter coming over, nodded, and wiped the rain off her face. Although she was a little scared, she still plucked up the courage to say to Peter, I'm lost, and my sister is missing. When she thought of her sister missing, her tears fell again. Your sister? Peter frowned and thought for a second, then asked her, is your sister Bakugo? Hearing Peter say Bakugo's name, the red-haired girl looked at him in shock. Yes, you. Sir, do you know where Bakugo is? Seeing her expression, Peter quickly confirmed that the girl in front of him was Wei, Bakugo's sister, and also an important role in Bakugo's transformation into Jinx. Logically speaking, Wei is not a father-worried character, and it is impossible for the system to send Wei to the farm. Could it be that Wei is also a gift from Bakugo, a buy one get one free deal? Peter lowered his head and looked at the watch on his hand. Now the system has not given him a prompt, which means that Wei is not the father-worried who has descended. Bakugo should be nearby. Reaching out his hand, Peter cast his eyes on Wei. Come on, let's go find Bakugo together. Wei looked at Peter, and for some reason, she felt a natural closeness to Peter in her heart. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand, stood up and nodded. Yeah. Peter hugged Wei, who was walking over to him, and put her in the middle. The cold winter air, coupled with the rain, made V, who was in his arms, shiver. Peter held V tightly, passing his body warmth to her while walking forward. Looking down, Peter glanced at the girl who was sobbing secretly with her eyes closed in his arms, and remembered what he knew about V in his previous life. V is responsible, agile, has great strength and keen intuition, and is particularly talented in fighting skills. But at the same time, she is also a widely criticized character. Not only because she and Bomb took a completely different path, But many people also think that she betrayed her class and her beliefs by wearing the badge of a law enforcer. But V is a complex character and cannot be simply defined as a traitor to Zon. Her upbringing and personality make her character complex and multi-layered. V and Bomb are residents of Zon. They grew up in poverty and witnessed the darkness and chaos of Zon, and they also know the suffering of the lower-class people. After losing their parents in the last battle of the Twin Cities, V and her sister Jinx were raised by Vandal, who had an important influence on her, making her grow into a person who cares about her family and protects her companions. As an adoptive father, Vandal has always hoped that the Twin Cities would remain peaceful. Therefore, V's core motivation has always been to protect Zon and the people she cares about. As things develop, she gradually realizes that violence cannot really change the status quo, but may bring more tragedy. Especially after Silco came to power and Jinx blew up Piltover, the relationship between the Twin Cities became increasingly tense, and the bottom city became increasingly darker. Silco is essentially a representative of the Alchemy Baron. He uses power to suppress the group of people under his command, and does not care about the lives of ordinary Zon people. He is even refining poisons such as Glimmer. Zon under Silco's rule is completely different from the Vandal era before V was imprisoned. The first person Wei met after she was released from prison was Caitlin, a female law enforcer who was completely different from her previous impression. After that, she had some contact with a young law enforcer and even established a deep relationship beyond friendship. Therefore, rather than saying that V is a traitor, it is better to say that she is a bridge figure who tries to break the barriers. However, this kind of middle-of-the-road person will definitely be hated by everyone. The lower-class people in Zon think that she has betrayed her class, and the upper-class people in Piltover will not really regard her as their own. Thinking of this, Peter sighed slightly. V's character is too simple. And this girl also has some mental problems. Compared with Bomb, V looks normal, but in fact she also has a borderline personality that is rejected by the mainstream. She is more tolerant to adapt to the outside world, but this does not mean that she can really integrate into the mainstream. V's style of doing things is very independent, focusing on practicality and being unkind. She either acts alone or only partners with people she thinks are useful. In addition to not bringing Bomb, she has also unilaterally abandoned Caitlin many times, and when she knew that Jace could not be persuaded, she immediately broke up and took away the gloves. As a teammate, it is not easy to get along with her. In addition, she has a serious self-destructive tendency like Bomb. This world is very ideal, but the reality is very skinny. V's pursuit seems very naive in the big background, and she seems very weak in the face of overwhelming reality. Rather than saying that Wei can't make a choice, it's better to say that she doesn't have the power to bear any choice, so whatever she chooses is wrong. Now that Wei has become his daughter, Peter feels a little overwhelmed. Just the mental problems of Bombshell are enough to give him a headache, and now the buy one get one free has brought another sister with mental problems. Holding Wei and thinking, Peter sighed softly and cast his supervision around. Soon she found Bombshell in the open space near the windmill. Bombshell squatted on the ground alone, shrugging his shoulders and crying in the heavy rain. Bombshell, who was soaked like a drowned chicken in the heavy rain, was stunned when he heard the familiar voice. Looking up, he saw Peter holding his sister. His eyes were red, and Bombshell pounced on Peter like a little lion. Bang! Peter hugged Bombshell, who pounced on him with explosive power. The umbrella in his hand fell to the ground because he reached out to catch Bombshell, and the rain immediately covered the three of them. Boomstick grabbed Peter's clothes with his hands and said in a crying voice, "Mom and Dad are gone. They don't want me anymore." Hearing her sister say that her parents were gone, Wei secretly wiped her tears with her hands. Peter activated the rune magic and built a circle of protective shield around to block the raindrops falling from the sky. He gently stroked Boomstick's hair with his hands, looked up at the night covered by rain and fog, and said to Boomstick, "Mom and Dad just went to a very far place." He knew that the system sent Boomstick and Wei when Boomstick's parents died in the war between Zon and Piltover. Originally, the two girls were supposed to be adopted by Vandal, but now he didn't know how the system abducted them to his farm. Holding a girl in one arm, Peter walked towards the farm. At the same time, a huge amount of information was instilled into Peter's mind. After Peter digested all the information, his brows slightly frowned. Sure enough, it was just as he guessed. Wei was a bonus for Boomstick's buy one get one free. Loki gave the world tree, Raven gave an angry three-palace demon who came to ask for his daughter, and when Tom came to the farm, he gave a school bus that could travel between the two worlds. Now when it was Boom's turn, the system gave him an extra daughter. Holding his two daughters, Peter looked in the direction of the farm. And this time the system gave not only way, but also a sewer. Looking up at the rainy sky, Peter couldn't help but complain, sending sewer pipes on rainy days, the system is really considerate. However, in addition to being able to drain water, the sewer sent by the system also has a function that Peter could not imagine. On the farm, Rhea and Persephone were busy with the sewer matter. As the rain got heavier, the thing that Persephone feared the most finally happened. The sewer was blocked by mud and other debris. The two had to come out on the rain to check and dredge the sewer together. Mark and Star-Lord also came out on the rain to help. It must be the garbage that has clogged the sewer. There are 2 garbage bins above this street, and they are often placed randomly. Persephone wiped the rain off her face and spoke loudly to everyone. Because of the howling wind and heavy rain, she had to speak loudly. Star-Lord nodded, and seeing that the water in the yard was accumulating more and more, he quickly walked to the sewer near the barn on the side of the courtyard, wanting to clear it quickly. However, to his surprise, the sewer in front of him seemed to be a little different. Not only was the entrance much wider, but it also became extremely deep and tortuous, as if it led not to the town's underground drainage system, but to another unknown space. After clearing the mud and sand accumulated near the sewer, the rainwater accumulated in the yard began to gurgle towards the underground pipe. Star-Lord listened carefully, but in the end he did not hear the sound of water flowing in the sewer. What is this? Star-Lord looked at Persephone and Rhea in astonishment. This doesn't seem to lead to the underground drainage system. I didn't hear any sound of rain falling. Hearing Star-Lord's words, Persephone also had a look of astonishment on her face. Mark asked in confusion, could this sewer pipe lead to some unknown space? It sounds like a plot in a second-rate science fiction novel. Rhea next to him complained, I would rather believe that we found an underground cave on the farm, full of treasures. Several people were discussing the strange sewer, and Peter carried the 2 sisters into the farm. Seeing that everyone was in front of the sewer pipe, Peter was a little surprised. The underground pipe that can lead directly to Sun was discovered so quickly by them? He remembered that Piltover installed the sewer pipe underground, which led directly to Zwan in the lower city, and the people in the upper city discharged garbage and poisonous water to the people in the lower city. Could it be that his farm has now become the upper city that produces garbage for Zwan? Chapter 546 Peter and the 2 sisters have a heart-to-heart conversation on a rainy night. As far as Peter knows, Zwan was originally a port city of the ancient Shurima kingdom, located on the Pilt River connecting Valoran and Shurima. The Pilt Canal brought prosperous trade and technological progress to the city, but the greedy Zwan families passed a parliamentary resolution to place alchemical explosives below, intending to widen the canal and build a magnificent lock bridge on it, the Sun Gate. Unexpectedly, an accident occurred during the construction of the project. The power of the alchemical explosives shook the structure of the 2 continental plates, causing the entire city of Zwan to be torn apart. Part of the city floated up to become the upper city, part of the city sank to become the lower city, and another part of the city sank to the bottom of the sea, killing and injuring countless residents. But the Sun Gate was successfully built, bringing countless wealth and resources to the upper city. Later, the upper city was named Piltover, and the lower city retained the original name of Zwan. Piltover has countless resources and wealth through the Sun Gate, and gradually became a city of technology and progress. Zwan became the sewer of Piltover. The industrial wastewater and alchemical poison gas formed by Piltover's technological experiments were all discharged into Zwan through the sewer. The invisible black market transactions also gathered in Zwan, making it a synonym for dirty and lowly. Now the sewer in the farm leads directly to Zwan, which also means that he can enter Zwan by drilling into the sewer like Boom Boom did in the past. Stroking the stubble on his chin, Peter fell into deep thought. There are many good things in Rune Continent. Not to mention the black market in Zwan, the various black technologies in Piltover, and other regions also have their own characteristics. The Targon Peak with the creator Dragon King Thor, the Void Land full of void creatures, etc. These mysterious places contain the most desirable secrets of the entire Rune Continent. If there's a chance, I can go to Rune Continent. While thinking, he cast his eyes on Star-Lord and others. When Loki came, the system gave him the World Tree. Now that Boom Boom has come, the system has given him the sewer. I wonder if every part of the farm will be upgraded in the future and become a base for traveling through the heavens and the worlds. On the other side, Star-Lord was checking the strange sewer. When he heard Peter's footsteps, he turned around. What caught his eyes was Peter and the two girls with blue hair and red hair in his arms. "Dad," Star-Lord looked at Peter in shock. After a while, he stretched out his finger and pointed blankly at Bakugo and Wei in Peter's arms. "Dad, you picked up unknown children again." "Unknown children?" Peter looked at him unkindly and asked, "What is this word? I mean, are they the same as Tom?" Star-Lord realized that he had said the wrong thing and immediately changed his words. Although he knew that his father often picked up children outside the farm, he didn't expect that Peter would start again not long after picking up Tom last time. And this time it wasn't just one, but two. This should be the first time, right? "Are they twins, Dad?" Star-Lord swallowed his saliva and asked Peter. "Yes, let's go back to the house first." Peter asked them to leave the sewer alone and go back to the room. Rhea and Persephone looked at each other, their eyes full of disbelief. Did a child really grow up in Peter's farm? No. Rhea shook her head and rejected this absurd idea. Tom came from the Hogwarts world before, and Rhea guessed that the farm might be the intersection of the multiverse. This can explain why babies or children from different universes are sent to this farm. Just like Clark was sent here. Thinking of this, Rhea suddenly understood why Azu, Loki, Raven and others have been so eager to inherit the farm. Do they also know the specialness of the farm? Rhea fell into wild thoughts. Mark next to her looked at the two people in Peter's arms curiously. The red-haired girl kept looking at them secretly and uneasily. The little girl with blue hair kept burying her head in Peter's shoulder, crying softly with her body shaking. After carrying Wei and Bao into the living room, Peter immediately asked Kara to prepare dry clothes. Raven had left many unworn clothes, which were just right for the two of them. When Zeus saw Peter carrying two little girls with strange hair colors into the living room, he was immediately confused. What was going on? Why did Dad pick up children from outside again? And this time one became two. At this rate, will Dad bring 3 children next time? Will he bring a football team the next time? Dad has more and more children, which means his status is becoming less and less important. And isn't the time his father spends with him getting less and less? Zoo felt a deep sense of crisis coming to him. "Dad? What happened?" Zoo asked Peter after calming down a little. Tom, who was next to him, also cast a curious look. "Who are they?" "Dad," Zoo looked at the two people who were carried upstairs by Kara and Persephone to change clothes, and asked Peter. "The red-haired girl is Wei, and the blue-haired girl is Bao. Like Tom, they lost their original parents," Peter said to everyone, "so from now on, they will live with us." Raven frowned and wanted to remind Peter. She understood her father's love, but with more and more adopted children, it would definitely become troublesome in the future. She just accepted Tom, and now there are twins. At this time, Raven didn't know about the system, and thought that she was different from Mark, Tom, and the twins. She was her father's biological child, while Mark and Tom were adopted. Because she was on the farm when she was a baby, and Mark and the others were already 4 or 5 years old when they were brought back by their father. "Dad," Raven stopped thinking about it, hesitated for a moment, and said to Peter tactfully, "I think the house at home is not big enough." Peter nodded. "Well, this is a problem. The farm will be expanded tomorrow. Wei will rest in your room tonight. As for Bomb and Persephone, she will rest in your room tonight. Is that okay?" Persephone nodded. "Okay," although Raven wanted to refuse, she finally nodded in agreement after looking at her father's serious face. "I know, Dad." Late at night, the rain outside the window began to decrease, and the howling wind also began to weaken. The raindrops tapped the glass window, making a crisp and continuous sound, sometimes fast and sometimes slow, sometimes dense like a beat curtain, sometimes sparse like a broken thread. Peter had just gone to bed to rest. Squeak, the door was suddenly pushed open. Peter opened his eyes, and heard the sound of 2 pairs of feet walking on the ground. Wei took Bomb's hand and walked to Peter's bed. The 2 girls with tear marks on their faces looked at each other, and then Bao whispered to Peter, "Sir, are you asleep?" "Not yet." Peter got up from the bed, startling the 2 sisters. The frightened sisters held each other's hands and took a step back. Seeing Peter get off the bed, Bao felt a little embarrassed because she was scared. She raised her head and said to Peter with courage, "My sister and I can't sleep, can we sleep with you?" Peter looked at Wei, who was a little embarrassed because he was not familiar with her, nodded, and said, "Of course, come up." As soon as Peter finished speaking, Bao immediately climbed onto his bed. Wei was a little hesitant, not knowing what to do. Seeing this, Peter reached out his hand, hugged the confused Wei's small body, and put her on his side. The two sisters leaned on Peter's side and got into the quilt obediently. Seeing that his quilt was occupied, Peter had to get up and take another quilt. Peter's body was close to the two girls who had just lost their parents. Bao lay quietly. After losing her parents, she suddenly came to a strange place. If she hadn't seen Peter in her dream before, she would probably cry with fear. Outside the window, raindrops tapped the window frame and the trees were swaying gently in the wind. Bao opened her eyes and listened to the rain for a while, and suddenly asked Peter, "Sir, can dreams become true?" Although she was young and didn't understand many things, Bao could feel the incredibleness of meeting Peter again. "Am I dreaming now?" She turned sideways and asked Peter in her low voice. "No, this is not a dream. If it was a dream, your little monkey would fly, but now it won't fly." Peter shook his head and reached out to touch Bao's hair. "Yes, the little monkey won't fly," Bao whispered. Listening to her sister's words, Wei was a little depressed. Smelling the strange smell that was different from home, thinking of her dead parents, she couldn't control her sadness. Peter noticed Wei's emotions and reached out to release healing rune magic to relieve Wei's emotions. Wei felt a warm sensation and shrank unconsciously into Peter's arms. Why do people die? Wei, who was more sensible than her sister, already knew the meaning of death. She curled up in Peter's arms and asked in a depressed mood, "Why did Mom and Dad die?" "That's the law of nature. Death is not something we can decide." "Wei, then who decides?" Wei asked sadly. Peter thought for a moment and said, "I think it's God. Maybe it's God, maybe it's someone else." He said to Wei, "Time passes, that's what I know. Nothing is guaranteed. Death will always happen. It's part of life. It's something that everything in the world will encounter, even turtles and giant redwoods." After hearing this, Wei said sadly in a low voice, "This is the bad part. Yes, although it can't be avoided, we can choose our attitude when we live." Peter gently stroked Wei's hair with his hand. He could feel the girl's heart. She looked stubborn and melancholy on the surface, but she was vulnerable on the inside. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 547 Dad, you must like Wei more. Half a month later. With the arrival of Christmas, the whole town is full of festive atmosphere. Every household has exquisite Christmas window decorations on their windows, which emit soft and warm lights, as if conveying the joy of the festival and the warmth of home to the outside world. Padrick Farm. In the living room of the house, a Christmas tree decorated with a variety of colors stands in the center of the living room. The tree is hung with colorful bulbs, glittering metal ornaments, exquisite handmade ornaments, and Christmas cards made by Raven and others. Mark finally succeeded in inviting Ginny to be a guest. But not only Ginny, but also Ron and Harry came with Ginny. Now, this is the most popular novel in Flourish and Blots. In the living room, Ron proudly said to Mark, "My dad asked the Ministry of Magic to buy it for me. It's not easy to buy a hardcover edition like this now." Mark heard the other party say this and came over curiously. The title of the book, The Life Story of the Legendary Wizard Padrick, came into his eyes. Seeing the title of the book, Mark immediately had a sense of foreboding. "Who is the author of this book?" he asked Ron in surprise. "The author's name is..." Ron looked at the author's name of the book. "It's Thor's Hammer." "I thought he was authorized to write an autobiography for your father, isn't it?" He always thought that this book was Peter's autobiography. "No, I don't know that my father published a book in the Hogwarts world, and I don't believe that my father would ask someone to write for him." Mark took the book from the other party suspiciously and flipped through it casually. It turned out that it was indeed a story of his father's various experiences and adventures. For example, fighting against parasites, fighting against the three witches, and saving the Marvel world. Seeing that the author's description was so real, Mark suspected that it was written by his father's children. As for who would be the author behind the scenes, just look at who has the most scenes besides his father, and that person will be the author. Mark flipped through a few pages and found the author. In the novel, besides Peter, Loki has the most scenes. There is no doubt that this guy Loki wrote this distorted story about his father. It's Loki. Mark immediately locked the murderer behind the scenes. He didn't expect that after Gilroy Lockhart fell, a new track replacement would appear. As the two were talking, Loki came down from upstairs. "Loki, is this a novel you wrote?" Mark stood up and asked Loki with a novel in his hand. "No, of course not." Loki immediately denied it. "Do you have any evidence?" He looked at Harry and Ron, shook his head and said, "Maybe it was a guy like Gilroy Lockhart who wrote a novel under another name. He would naturally not admit it." "Well, I heard," Harry interrupted the tense situation of several people. "Principal Dumbledore is considering hiring Mr. Padraic as the new teacher of defense against the dark arts, because this book makes Mr. Padraic very famous in the British wizarding world." Harry said to everyone, "If it is Mr. Padraic, I will definitely be willing to take his class. At least Mr. Padraic's story legend is not fake." After experiencing two weird defense against the dark arts teachers, what Harry wants now is a normal wizard to teach him some dark magic. "I don't think it's likely that Dad will teach the defense against the dark arts course. He wouldn't want to be a teacher." Mark shrugged his shoulders like Peter did. "Also, don't let Dad see this book. He will definitely be angry because it says that Dad has many girlfriends." At the same time, Walmart supermarket. It usually takes people 7 minutes to fall asleep, and according to Han's human physiology, we actually need 15 to 20 minutes to wake up. While picking up products in the supermarket, Peter said to Wei, who was walking beside her, "It's like sleep is a pond. It's harder to climb out of it than to jump in. If a sleeping person wants to wake up, he has to go through a deep sleep period, a light sleep period, and finally transition to a waking sleep period. At this time, the sleeper can hear voices and even answer questions unconsciously, but they can't remember it afterwards. They can only remember fragments of dreams." Peter was telling Wei about sleep. Wei was always curious about why her father took her into the dream world at night, so she kept pestering him to ask. "Dad, I understand. I've been through this phase, too." Wei helped Peter push the cart and told him, "There used to be fights in Zon, and sometimes they even killed each other. Once I saw a man dying in a conflict. His neck was broken, and a bone was sticking out of his swollen and twisted right shoulder, but he was still alive. It was incredible, but he died later." Wei described her experience to Peter. "I remember his eyes moved and opened. His eyes were blue, and there was blood around his eyes. His eyes looked around blankly, but he saw nothing. Finally, he tried to move his head, and the doctor held him down hard to stop him from moving. Then he began to tremble all over, and suddenly it seemed as if every muscle in his body was frozen, and then his eyes lost that look." Wei was a little scared by the previous memory. "Later, I dreamed of him in my sleep. He stared with blank, bloodshot eyes, speaking to me clearly like a talking parrot or a starling." Wei stopped pushing the shopping cart, exhaled, and asked Peter, "Dad, are there really ghosts in this world?" "No, it's just a nightmare. We all have nightmares, baby," Peter comforted her. "Yet," Wei nodded, "Dad, I saw the pain that person felt after being defeated by others, so I always hope to train myself and not let myself fail and become that kind of person." She stretched out her hand to Peter with a firm expression. "Dad, I will use these fists to protect you and Bao, and use them to defeat the enemy." Peter put the purchased cookies into the shopping cart and looked at Wei. "You are still too young, dear, and excessive training may cause you to get hurt." Peter squatted down and checked Wei's body. In her previous life, Wei had a strong interest in boxing. After hard training, she showed strong strength in boxing and fighting. After just a period of systematic learning, with a physique of 175 centimeters and less than 65 kilograms, she could throw a strong man who was nearly 190 centimeters tall. And after a short run-up, she could directly kick the strong man through the wall nearly 10 meters away. He didn't believe that this level was a normal human. "I know, Dad, I will pay attention." Wei looked at him expectantly. "Can you teach me 2 more moves?" "I already know the move you asked me to practice last time." Wei had seen Peter beat up a few thugs before, and she was full of admiration and pestered Peter to teach him boxing. Peter had no choice but to teach her a move and let her practice it herself. "Really? Show me." Peter asked Wei to show it. Wei nodded, took a deep breath, and then stood in place and threw several consecutive left hooks in front of her. "Not bad, the movements are quite coherent and skillful," Peter praised his daughter. "But," he paused again, "the flaw of these routine combinations is that they only have different punches in succession. The end point of each routine is the end point of the punch, and they do not integrate defensive footwork and evasion. But these are already very good. When you grow up, I will teach you footwork." Hearing Peter's words, Wei's heart was immediately filled with excitement. "Thank you, Dad." She came up and hugged Peter excitedly. After buying things for Christmas in the supermarket, Peter returned to the farm. After talking to Harry and Ron for a few words, Peter did not notice the strange expressions of Harry and others and went upstairs. After Peter left, Ron breathed a sigh of relief and quickly put away the book. Knock, 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 on the second floor. Knocking on the door of Bao Bao, Peter asked, "Bao Bao, are you in there?" "I'm not." Bao Bao's muffled voice came from the room. Probably because he was afraid that Peter would leave, Bao Bao quickly changed his words. "I'm here, Dad." Peter nodded and pushed the door open to enter. What caught his eye was Bao Bao lying on the table. There were two little monkeys crookedly placed on the ground. Two little monkeys were thrown on the ground by their owner. Peter picked up the little monkeys from the ground. "Don't you want them anymore? You spent several days making them." Peter put the little monkeys on the table and asked Bao Bao, who was lying on his face. Since Bao Bao moved into the farm, although she is still a little shy and likes to stick to Peter, Raven and Loki have taken good care of this girl who lost her parents and is always timid and unconfident. Bao Bao also quickly showed her top scientific research and hands-on talent. She picked up some materials on the farm and made a clockwork monkey. So much so that Peter now has to hide the explosive items on the farm, for fear that Bao Bao will stuff them into the little monkeys. But what gives him a headache now is Bao Bao's spirit. Now the little monkey is thrown on the ground, and he is sure that Bao Bao threw the little monkey on the ground because he took Wei out without her. "It's useless for me to do it anyway. Wei can talk, and everyone likes her," Bao Bao said in a muffled voice. "I can't do anything." "Dad, you must like Wei more." "No, why do you think so?" Peter squatted down and held Bao Bao's hand. "Of course Dad loves you. I won't like you more or less just because of your different personalities. Promise me, Dad, you will never leave me, okay, no matter when." Bao Bao raised his blue eyes and asked him. Chapter 548. Did Peter give birth to another monster daughter? Yes, no matter when. Peter gently held Bao Bao's hands. "I will never abandon you, because we are a family. I'm so sorry, Dad." Bao Bao looked at him with a flustered and uneasy look as Peter held his hands. "Sometimes, I can't control my temper. I don't want to throw the little monkey and rabbit dolls on the ground." Bao Bao apologized to Peter guiltily. "I'm just afraid. I'm afraid that you will abandon me and no longer love me." "No, of course not." Peter reached out and touched Bao Bao's cheek. Bao Bao didn't dodge and gently moved his face closer. "Dad, do you really think I'm great?" Bao Bao raised her head and asked Peter, her big eyes full of desire for recognition. She said a little unconfidently, "Everyone likes Wei. I think I may be useless, and I don't have the strength of Wei." Although Bao Bao was very happy living on the farm these days, she still felt a strong sense of inferiority when getting along with everyone, especially compared with her sister Wei. V is cheerful and a bit of a big sister, and she soon got along well with Mark and Raven. In comparison, Bombshell could only follow Peter, timidly keeping a sense of alienation from everyone. "No, of course you are not, Bombshell. You are very smart, and when you grow up, you will become a scientist, or a very good girl who specializes in scientific research, because V can't make clockwork monkeys and rabbit dolls like you." Peter comforted his daughter. He understood Bombshell's lack of confidence and insecurity, and also understood that Bombshell now just longed for love and recognition. In her previous life, when Bombshell lived in Zon, she was the youngest in the team. So she would be complained by her friends as a burden, unable to do anything well, and would only drag everyone down. This further stimulated her determination to be recognized. At that time, Bombshell wanted to be recognized by V. After losing her parents, she subconsciously projected her spiritual sustenance onto V. This is the primitive instinct of creatures to develop spiritual dependence on the strong, and it is also a biological instinct to seek protection and increase the probability of survival. For humans, especially children, this kind of dependence will be built on the closest family members, and Wei is the only remaining family member of Boom Boom, so Boom Boom's spiritual sustenance is naturally Wei. So she is extremely eager to get Wei's recognition, which is a recognition of ability and personality, and this recognition is essential for the integrity and growth of personality. But Wei was just a child at that time, and she didn't understand or comprehend Boom Boom's ideas. Her love for Boom Boom is a protective, greenhouse love, which is not what Boom Boom really wants. So when Wei refused Boom Boom to help save Fandel, for Wei, it was a kind of protection, but for Boom Boom, it was a denial of ability, a denial of personality, which she could not accept. In addition, the misunderstanding caused by Boom Boom's previous overhearing of Wei's words made her more determined that Wei also regarded herself as a burden, so she was so angry and crazy. She urgently needed an opportunity to show herself and prove herself. The appearance of the rune crystal gave her this opportunity. She thought she had finally found a way to prove herself. It was just that fate played a ruthless joke on her. Boom succeeded and failed. But she didn't know her failure at that time. She thought she saved everyone, so she excitedly found Wei, eager to get the words "you did a great job" from Wei, and eager to get Wei's recognition. But everything was completely opposite to what Boom imagined. All she saw was Fandel's body and Wei, who was emotionally broken. In the end, all she got was a sentence: "You are a disaster." Disaster also means jinx. Peter was thinking about Boom's personality problem. Boom bit her lip and looked up at the little monkey on the table. She whispered to Peter, "Dad, do you like the little monkey I made?" Of course. Peter smiled and pinched her face. "My Boom must be a genius. One day, Boom's invention will be of great help to Dad, as long as the little monkey doesn't blow herself up." Boom was immediately encouraged by what she said. She held the little monkey in her hand, and a trace of determination flashed in her blue eyes. I will definitely be the person who helps Dad the most, no matter what Dad wants me to do." "Of course, I believe you," Peter nodded, stood up and said to her. "Then, Dad, will you always love me?" Boom held the little monkey, looked down at the broken ear of the doll, and asked his own question. Peter whispered to her, "Yes, I will always love you. You are my daughter who I would not trade for anything." Twisting the clothes with his fingers, Boom hesitated for a moment, and continued to ask, "Do you love you more than Vi and Raven?" Hearing Boom's words, Peter was stunned for a moment. After thinking for a while, he said to Boom, "You are all the same in my heart, Boom. You are equally important to Vi and Raven." Compared with a previous life, Boom seems to project the spiritual sustenance of Vi into himself. Peter guessed that it was for this reason that Boom threw the doll to the ground after he did not take care of her emotions a little. Boom's spiritual sustenance seems to be a little distorted. What she longed for was fatherly love, but this kind of love was more like a twisted love, a love with a strong possessiveness, which is what is now called sickly. In her subconscious, it seemed that Bombshell regarded herself as her property, and no one could snatch it from her. This kind of fatherly love belonged to her, and she was not allowed to share it with others, nor was she allowed to be shared by others. So much so that she began to have a competitive relationship with her former closest sister. Thinking of this, Peter frowned. Would Bombshell's sickly behavior cause her to turn against other sisters and brothers in the future? Could it be that Bombshell in this life would follow the old path of her previous life and turn against her sister and become an old enemy? No, it wouldn't. Peter comforted himself in his heart that Bombshell would not be so extreme. With a frown on his face, he suddenly thought of a dream Clark had once had. Clark had seen a certain future of his own. During the Galactic War with Darkseid, Clark launched a rebellion and returned to Earth. If there really is a situation in the future where several children turn against each other, will it also be because of Bombshell's situation? Although I think this conjecture is a bit incredible, it is not a zero possibility. It seems that I have to strengthen the psychological counseling of Bao Bao, and not let her have too many such thoughts. Taking a deep breath, Peter touched Bao Bao's hair. "You are now a family with Wei, Raven, and Tom. As a family, you have to love each other. Bao Bao, can you promise, Dad? Promise to love and help each other with your sisters and brothers in the future." Bao Bao looked at Peter's serious face and nodded subconsciously. "I will, Dad." "Very good, you can't go back on your promise to Dad." Peter gently pinched Bao Bao's face, said a few words, and then cast his eyes to the bright sunshine outside. Considering that Bao Bao has the talent of blasting and scientific research, Peter decided to take her to the Marvel world to visit Tony Stark's laboratory. Both of them are geniuses in research. This trip should be able to enlighten Bao Bao's talent and stop her from thinking about things in the room all the time. "Dad wants to take you to a place you have never been to, Bao Bao. Are you willing to go now?" He lowered his head and asked Bao Bao. Hearing that his father was going to take him to a place he had never been to, Boom immediately nodded excitedly. "I do, Dad." A few minutes later. Marvel World. Peter took Boom and traveled through time and space and stood in front of Stark Tower. Looking at the majestic building in front of him and the prosperity of the surrounding cities, Boom, who was holding Peter's hand, showed a shocked expression on his face. "Wow, Dad, is this Piltover?" "No, this is New York." Peter lowered his head and said to Boom, "It's also the most prosperous city in the world." "The most prosperous?" Boom glanced at the surrounding buildings. "Compared to Metropolis and Piltover, which one is the most prosperous?" Peter was stunned by his daughter's question. After coughing, he said to Boom, "It depends on how you look at it. You can go and investigate it yourself in the future to see which city is the most prosperous." Taking Boom, Peter entered Stark Tower and soon met Tony Stark. Seeing Peter appear with a delicate little girl with blue hair, Tony, who was talking to Pepper in the office, looked at him in shock after hanging up the phone. "Is this your daughter?" He even forgot to greet Peter. Pointing at Bakugo, who was hiding behind Peter, he asked, "Peter, don't tell me you gave birth to another daughter in your world." "Yes, my daughter, Bakugo." After introducing Bakugo, Peter stretched out his hand to him. "It seems that you have been living a good life recently, and you look better than before." Tony glanced at Bakugo and shook hands with Peter. "Maybe I feel better because I also have a daughter," he asked Peter curiously. "Can you tell me how you gave birth to so many sons and daughters at such a young age?" He thought that Raven, Zoo and others were all born to Peter, and he was full of envy of Peter's powerful kidney ability and ability to have children. "There's nothing I can do about it. It's natural. By the way, congratulations on having a daughter." Peter didn't explain and went straight to the point and said to him, "Can you show Boom to see your technological inventions?" Boom has always been interested in technological inventions, and she likes this kind of high-tech that can explode. Hearing Peter's words, Tony Stark was stunned and looked at Boom in astonishment. Could it be that Peter had another monster daughter? Chapter 549 Give the nuclear reactor to Bao Bao. She's interested in scientific research at such a young age? Tony Stark looked at Peter with suspicion. Is your daughter a genius? The kind that learned everything by herself? He didn't believe there could be such a young genius. Even Peter's daughter. Bombshell just likes it. Peter reached out and touched the hair of Bombshell, who was hiding behind him, and said to Tony, "Maybe the high technology here can inspire your interest." That's right, Tony was quite confident in the high-tech products invented by his company. "Come on, Boom, I'll show you around the company. You'll definitely be amazed. Believe me, the things here are definitely better than the mountains of corn on your father's farm." Hearing Tony say that this place is better than the farm, although Boom was a little scared, she still mustered up the courage to show her head and said to Tony, No place can compare to my farm." Hearing Boom's words, Tony looked at Peter helplessly, then shrugged and said to Boom, "Okay, just treat it as your farm. Come on, little girl, I'll show you around." Seeing Tony's outstretched hand, Boom grabbed Peter's clothes in fear. "What's wrong?" Peter lowered his head and asked her. "I don't want to leave my dad," because it was an unfamiliar environment and far away from the farm. Boom didn't want to be too far away from Peter. "Dad won't leave you either." Peter smiled at his daughter. "I'll go with you." Hearing Peter say this, Boom nodded, grabbed Peter's hand, followed Tony Stark, and walked towards the company's research laboratory. After entering the high-tech laboratory, Bao Bao was immediately shocked by the cool experimental equipment inside. Bao Bao couldn't move her feet because of the full system projection technology that appeared in the air. There was a mechanical arm on the experimental table next to her, and the top-level computer was installed near one wall of the laboratory. Everything in the laboratory was incredible to Bao Bao. When she was in Zone, there was nothing at home. Her only way of life was to jump on the bed with her sister or play hide-and-seek. After arriving at the farm, the TV, computer and radio, these strange things, made her addicted for several days. Once she even wanted to dismantle the TV in the living room to see what was inside the TV. If Peter hadn't discovered it early, I'm afraid his daughter would have been blown away by the TV. Even if she wasn't blown away, she would probably be electrocuted. After that, Peter had to strictly forbid her to dismantle household appliances. Otherwise, he was really afraid that Bao Bao would dismantle the appliances at home and send his farm to the sky. Looking down at his daughter's shocked and excited eyes, Peter thought to himself that he must bring Boom to Tony Stark's place more often in the future. This way, Boom can vent his excess energy, and even if Tony's laboratory is blown up, it will not affect his farm. "What is this, Mr. Stark?" Boom walked in front of a golden and red armor and asked. The armor in the glass display case is not an Iron Man armor, but a red and gold Spider-Man uniform. The Spider-Man uniform shows a sense of science fiction, and is equipped with 3 auxiliary mechanical arms at the back. This is Spider-Man's uniform. Tony Stark shrugged his shoulders. It's a uniform for a kid who jumps around in the sky like a spider. He came to help out when he fought Captain America last time. I helped him develop a uniform. Wow. Boom looked at the Spider-Man uniform in front of him with envy. It looks so cool. If it's worn on a person, it really looks like a spider. Soon she became a little frustrated. It's a pity that I don't like spiders very much. Actually, I don't like spiders either. Tony took Peter and Boom to an Iron Man uniform placed in the laboratory. It looks good, right? My Iron Man uniform can take you flying in the sky, and it won't fall off. Tony walked to the nearby experimental cabinet and took out the reactor device of the Iron Man suit. The reactor flashing with blue light immediately attracted Boom's attention. This mechanical power armor combines defense, attack, and flexibility. It can go up to the sky and into the ground. It is omnipotent. The key to its powerful strength lies in the small arc nuclear reactor on its chest. Tony introduced to Boom and Peter. The arc reactor converts ordinary matter into a high-energy state through technical means. This conversion process breaks through the maximum limit of energy and realizes the efficient use of energy. The converted high-energy matter can release huge energy, providing a continuous source of power for the Iron Man suit to support its flight in combat. Listening to Tony Stark's introduction, Boom's eyes were immediately attracted to it and he could no longer look away. Can I touch it? Boom raised his head and asked nervously. Of course. Tony stretched out his hand and let Boom touch it. Boom raised his head and glanced at Peter nervously. After receiving Peter's encouraging eyes, he stretched out his hand carefully. Touching the cold reactor, Boom took a deep breath, looked up and said to Peter, Dad, one day, I will put this thing in my little monkey. Peter, he coughed. He felt that this idea was a bit dangerous. When you grow up and learn this knowledge, you will definitely be able to do it. Peter, who didn't want to discourage his daughter, had to say so perfunctorily. If you like, Boom, Tony said as he put away the arc reactor, walked to a laboratory cabinet, took out a more crude red and white reactor from each and gave it to Boom. This reactor can be given to you. Seeing that Tony was going to give the reactor to his daughter, Peter was immediately numb. Do you think I'm not dying fast enough? If Boom gets this kind of black technology, wouldn't he blow up the farm and send himself to the sky at the same time? Peter immediately refused and said, No, Tony, these things are too expensive. It doesn't matter. This is. Tony looked at the reactor device in his hand with a complicated expression and said, This is not a nuclear reactor, but the first reactor I built in the cave. It is just a commemorative meaning to me now. The first generation reactor? Looking at the familiar shape, Peter remembered Tony Stark's experience before he became Iron Man. After being captured by terrorists in the Middle East and taken to a cave, Tony Stark was injured by the explosion. Many shrapnel were embedded in his chest. Although most of them were taken out, some were still difficult to take out. In order to prevent the shrapnel from entering the heart membrane, Yiko made an electromagnet suction device and installed it on Tony's chest. But this device is very inconvenient and must be connected to a battery at all times. So Tony, who woke up, based on the arc reactor of Stark Industries, used 1.6 grams of palladium to make a palladium arc reactor, which is the first generation of the arc reactor, also called the small arc reactor mark. Don't worry, it's safe. Tony put the first generation reactor in Boom's hand. Boom was so excited that he wanted to thank him, but he still looked up at Peter's face. Although he wanted it very much, he still had to listen to his father. Since it's your Uncle Stark, take it. Although he was worried about his daughter's explosion ability, compared with a nuclear reactor, this one in front of him was still within the acceptable range. Thank you, Uncle Stark, Boom happily thanked Tony. Looking at his daughter's cheerful expression, and then looking at Tony Stark, the dog owner. Peter thought about whether to let Tony make a pair of gloves for Wei. But there is no need to rush about this matter. Wei is just a little girl now, and it is not her turn to stand up and fight. Christmas is coming soon, so Tony can help make some gifts for his daughter. In the evening, Peter left Tony Stark building with Boom, who returned with a lot of things, and took his daughter to his own manor. This is his own homotopic farm in the Marvel world, which is now kept by Wanda. It has been several months since the last time he came to the farm. Peter missed Wanda a little after not seeing her for a long time. In the farm, Quicksilver was sitting on the sofa watching TV. Quicksilver, holding potato chips in one hand and Fat House Happy Water in the other, had become a happy Fat House. When Peter came in with Boom, He saw Quicksilver, who had gained weight, and didn't recognize him for a moment. "You are Quicksilver?" Peter asked in shock. "Mr. Padrick." Quicksilver was also surprised to see Peter appear. Sorry, I didn't clean the room." Quicksilver immediately stood up in a hurry. "It's okay," Peter shook his head and said. He was a little skeptical now. Could this fat Quicksilver in front of him still run at super speed? "My sister is upstairs, I'll call her down right away." Quicksilver immediately activated his super speed, but the next second he crashed into the stairs with a bang. Quicksilver groaned and glanced awkwardly at Peter and Boom. "Sorry, unexpected situation, Peter." On the second floor, Wanda was flipping through a new magic book she had obtained. The magic book, called the Darkhold, was obtained by her from a witch named Agatha. It is said that the Darkhold was once the source of spell books such as the Book of the Dead, and it can ensure that it can be fully understood in any language. It contains many powerful black magics. Wanda tried to cross the time barrier and freely enter and exit the universe where Peter was, so she found this magic book. When she heard her brother say that Peter was here, she immediately closed the book, ran downstairs excitedly, and gave Peter a big hug. "Long time no see, sir," Wanda said to Peter in surprise. "I was thinking about you before." Chapter 550, Christmas. The Padrick family, all members gathered together. Seeing the intimacy between Wanda and Peter, Boom next to them felt a little depressed. She suddenly felt that her father was shared by others. "That means we are thinking alike." Peter gently patted Wanda's hair, and the two separated. "But you don't look very good recently, Wanda," Peter reminded her. "Are you too busy recently?" "No, I'm just studying a magic book recently, and I may have slept a little late." Wanda concealed from him that she was reading the Dark God book. She cast her eyes on Boom and asked in surprise, "Sir, who is she?" "Her name is Boom, my daughter." Peter introduced Boom to the two. Boom, who was a little shy, hid behind the two and secretly glanced at Wanda. "Hello, Boom, I'm Wanda." Wanda stretched out her hand and wanted to shake hands with Boom. She had a good impression of this timid girl. She was also a shy little girl when she was a child. "Hello." Boom appeared from behind Peter and greeted Wanda in a low voice. After Peter talked to the two siblings, he told them his purpose. He wanted to invite them to spend Christmas on the farm in his world. Tomorrow is Christmas, and he plans to invite Leela from the Injustice world and Wanda from the Marvel world to participate in the Christmas on the farm. Since there are a few more people in the family, he doesn't mind inviting 2 more people, and he missed them for a long time. Christmas. Wanda was stunned when she heard the word. She didn't think that Peter would invite her to participate in Christmas in the parallel world. "Are you busy recently?" Peter said to her. "If you have something to do, forget it." "No, I feel a little surprised." "I am willing." Wanda hurriedly said that she was looking forward to going to the farm to participate in Christmas. "And me?" Quicksilver next to him raised his hand. "Can I go?" Of course. After leaving the Marvel world, Peter took Boom into the Injustice world again. Leela, who was working as a superhero in Metropolis to fight criminals, was as surprised as Wanda when she saw Peter appear. Leela also looked forward to participating in Christmas and said that she would definitely participate. The next day, at night. This year's Christmas at Padrick's farm should be the most lively one. Not only Wanda and her brother and Lyra attended, but also Vixen, Diana, Zatanna, and Bruce came. Ginny, Harry, and Ron also attended the first special Christmas in the other world as guests. In the center of the living room, there is a huge Christmas tree, which is hung with all kinds of decorations, from golden bells to colorful glass balls, and paper stars made by Raven and her friends. The gifts under the tree are neatly wrapped, exuding an alluring sense of mystery. Way and Boom excitedly circled around the Christmas tree, stopping from time to time, carefully touching the beautifully wrapped gifts, guessing what surprises might be hidden inside. It was the first time for the two to hear about Christmas, and they were particularly curious. There is no Christmas in the Rune continent where Boom and Wei live. For the two, the most important festival of the year is the Chinese New Year. Wow, it's so beautiful. It feels even better than the Chinese New Year and the Soul Eater Festival. Boom looked up at the glittering gifts above his head and said to Wei with surprise. The Soul Eater that Boom mentioned is the Halloween of Runeterra. The origin of Soul Eater comes from the Shadow Isles. It used to be a beautiful and blessed land, but it was destroyed by a magical disaster a long time ago. After that, the black mist forever shrouded the island, and the evil magic polluted and corrupted everything. The souls who died in the black mist will be cursed and become part of the black mist forever. What's more terrifying is that the black mist is expanding every year, intending to devour more souls in Runeterra. Sometimes, the black mist will drift across the ocean, and the ghosts of the dead will wander with it. The black mist most often visits Bilgewater, which is the closest, during the Soul Eater. Those who died at the hands of ghosts during the Soul Eater will be cursed, and their souls will be dragged back to the Shadow Isles when the black mist retreats. In order to commemorate the departed souls and dispel the black fog, the soul-devouring night festival began to become popular on the mainland. Wei listened to her sister's words and nodded. She also had a dreamy and unreal feeling. Wei, who had lived in Zon since she was a child, had always lived a hard and poor life. The colorful scene in front of her made her feel unreal. She even worried that if she slept, this kind of life in front of her would disappear, and she and her sister would lie in the garbage dump of Zon. Riven next to her had curiosity and expectation in her eyes, while Mark was more concerned about whether his stockings were hung on the head of the bed, expecting Santa Claus to quietly put the gifts in. He knew that it was probably his father who secretly put the gifts in, because that's what his father did last time. In the kitchen, Diana whispered to Peter, "To be honest, I feel that your home is a bit like a nursery atmosphere." After Bomb and Wei came, she and Peter were helping Persephone prepare dinner. The aroma of roast chicken and the sweetness of gingerbread intertwined, making people salivate. Hearing Diana's words, Peter looked up and said, "This is the trouble of having too many children. You'll get used to it." "That's right." Diana looked out at the living room, looking at the noisy children, and her heart was lost in fantasy. "I wonder what it would be like if I and Peter had children in the future?" Soon she realized that her current thoughts were too frivolous. "Is this something I should consider? Thinking about children before getting married? Are you okay? The pancakes are almost burned." Peter suddenly came over to her and said, startling her. "No, it's okay." She moved the pancake pan away a little unnaturally. "I remembered something else. In that dream, I dreamed of myself in another world line, occupying the British Isles and killing millions of people. Is that true?" "Oh, you can think of it as just a dream, but you sent the golden helmet, which can't be explained by dreams." Diana frowned slightly. "If that was really a dream, I think it must be a nightmare, a world destined to collapse, a world without a future." Peter shook his head and said to her, "But there are also many humans who don't give up. There is no need to worry, Diana. Even if it has happened, everything has been corrected. That dream left us with only reflection on the current situation and thinking about the choice of destiny." "Really?" Diana sighed slightly. "I think time travel is complicated. Maybe everything has been restored, or maybe something we didn't notice has changed." She turned her gaze to Peter. "Anyway, thank you, Peter. I want to know you. Maybe it really changed my destiny. If we hadn't met, maybe my destiny would be like that on that timeline. I will remember this dream," she said to Peter with emotion. Peter nodded and cast his eyes on Raven and others outside. Not only Diana, but these people met and formed relationships with him, and their fates have changed. After dinner, everyone sat around the fireplace, enjoying the warm firelight. Boom and Wei curled up beside Peter, listening to the vixen telling her story of fighting crime in Metropolis. In the middle, Diana performed a magic trick for them. Ron also used the repaired wand to perform a magic of releasing fireworks, but he almost burned his hair. Boom's chuckle kept echoing in the living room. It was not until late at night that the bell rang in the early morning, and Boom and Mark and others had to go upstairs to rest. After Peter covered Boom and Wei with a quilt, he said goodnight to them and prepared to go back to his room to rest. "Dad," Wei suddenly called her, revealing her red hair from the quilt. "What's wrong?" Peter came over and squatted down to tuck in the corner of the quilt for her. "If I hang my socks on the bedside, will Santa Claus come to give me presents at night?" Wei asked in a low voice. Although she was sensible enough to know that Santa Claus could not be true, she was still full of expectations. "Of course," Peter said to the two of them. "Santa Claus will give presents to all children." "Then how does he get in?" asked Bao Bao, who was sleeping on the innermost side. Peter continued to explain. "Generally, Santa Claus comes in through the chimney, but I don't want Santa Claus's presents. I only want Daddy's." Bao Bao blinked his big blue eyes and said to him. Wei reached out and pinched her sister, whispering, "Silly, Santa Claus is Daddy, and this is Daddy's present." "Peter, I wanted to protect your innocent dreams, but I didn't expect that way. You naughty kid, pretended to know nothing and ended up fooling me here." "Ahem, Peter coughed hard, signaling the two not to talk in private in front of him. Well, it's late, let's go to bed early. Peter kissed the two girls on the forehead and turned to leave. Dad, Bao called Peter like her sister and whispered to him, "This is the happiest day I've ever had. Will you spend holidays like this with me in the future?" "Yes," Peter said to her, "there will always be holidays like this. I hope that every holiday in the future, my dad will accompany me, and we will never be separated," Bao said while lying on the bed with sparkling eyes. Of course, Peter came over and rubbed Bao's pigtails. "Me too," Wei also said to Peter. "Dad, I will definitely protect you and your sister in the future. We will live together until we die. I'm waiting for you to grow up and protect me." Peter said that he was looking forward to it. The next day, early in the morning, Wei woke up early, and the first thing she did was to grab her stockings. Seeing the gift inside, she was stunned. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.